Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome back to the stream. Obviously I've just switched over from the practice one watch-along. Good to see some of you switching over. And yeah, the main bulk of what we're doing today with our Friday practice streams will be in this stream, because in a few moments we are going to get into the build-up to practice 2, and what we're going to be talking about again is the Red Bull cost cap situation and the Alonso penalty being overturned as well. You may notice that the timer counting down until practice 2 begins has not begun yet. The reason is because I am about to play a video that I did on Tuesday that will also serve as, a video for me to take a quick break and, re-energize myself for the rest of the day. But, yeah, that's what the plan is for this next, say, hour and 45 minutes until we get into practice 2. And then, yeah, practice 2 will be an hour and a half long session. Now, yeah, this video that I'm going to get into, this video, I recorded it as a part of a stream on Monday where I got into the updates to the Red Bull cost cap situation, and this video was uploaded on Tuesday evening. So if you do want to go and watch this video on your own at a later point in time, then yeah, make sure to go to the channel and you'll find the video called, I think, was it Why Red Bull May Not Have, or may have been a bit screwed over by the FIA in this whole situation. I'm sure Rooksfoot in the chat will be posting the link to this video anyway, which will be playing in just a second. It's about 15 minutes long. So what this video is going to do is it's going to give us a bit of a build up to the news we're going to get into in a moment about the penalty that Red Bull have been given. And what this video gets into is all of the updates essentially from the US Grand Prix weekend. So yeah, we'll get into that in a second. I'm just going to quickly, though, play it, see if you guys can hear it correctly. And if you can, then I'll leave you with this video. So just quickly. So, of course, the Red Bull cost cap saga is still ongoing. Right, so just put yes in the chat if you heard that correctly. And then, yeah, I'll leave you with that for 15 minutes. And then I'll get into the further updates to the whole situation with Red Bull and the FIA. And I'll just quickly get... what do you call it? I'll just quickly get Chris Medland, who obviously is the best at reporting current news in F1. Get his Twitter ready as well, because he, of course, has covered it very well so far today. So, yeah, just got that tweet ready for you guys. I'll be showing on screen in I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes time. Audio okay? Good. Right, so yeah, I'll leave you with this video. And again, this video will give you all the news that happened at last week's Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, and all the updates we had to the situation. And then after this video finishes, I'll get into the, I guess, finalization of this whole situation. So I'll see you guys on the other side of this video. And yeah, make sure to post as well in the live chat what you think of the whole situation so far. So, of course, the Red Bull cost cap saga is still ongoing, and there has been further updates to this whole situation. Let's now get into it after there was a few developments to this story at the US Grand Prix. Now, let's start with this firstly, and this came out on the Thursday of the US Grand Prix. And this was a tweet from Andrew Benson about how the FIA had made an offer to Red Bull for the terms of an accepted breach agreement for them breaching the cost cap. Details, as Andrew is saying with this tweet, as with all issues on this matter, are confidential for now. Now Red Bull have to decide whether to accept or go before a adjudication panel. Now, we'll get more so in a moment into what the punishment possibly is or could be that the FIA has offered to Red Bull in terms of this accepted breach agreement. What an accepted breach agreement is basically is the FIA notify Red Bull, look, this is the punishment that we are going to give you, and that, if Red Bull accept that decision and go into that agreement, then I believe everything stays confidential, but the punishment will be known as to this whole, them breaching the cost cap. But if Red Bull decide to go to the adjudication panel, then things would become more public, and Red Bull, if they were still given a punishment by that panel, they would have to accept it at that point. But that came out on the Thursday, but we still didn't have any details, or we weren't really any closer to certain details about how much had they overspent by, what did it go on, what was the offer that the FIA made to Red Bull with this accepted breach agreement. Let's now get into some of that here. Now, firstly, I'm going to start off with this Autosport article, which for this video, I will have a link to this article in the description if you want to go and give it a read. It's a very good one from Autosport that they put out on Thursday evening, I believe. It was either Thursday or Friday evening. I think it might have been Thursday evening in the UK. And in this article where they talk about the whole Red Bull cost cap situation, they get into what they believe is, how much they overspent by, and they get into what they think it went on. So let me read some of this article. It says, the overall figure involved is believed to be around $1.8 million, which, it may say later on in that article, which puts the offence well within the minor breach limit of 5% over the cap, or just over $7 million. But $1.8 million is not minor. That is a lot of money to be going over by. And, if you did spend it purely on car development, you would gain a lot of lap time spending that amount of money. But it goes on to say, the team appears to have fallen foul of several areas of the FIA's financial regulations, which have been regularly updated by amendments that have not been published on its website or made public. Very important to remember that part of the article, because the FIA, as it goes into, further detail in this article, they've made amendments to their financial regulations, but they've not actually published it, I don't believe, on its website and, on the actual regulations on its website. So that is key to remember in going through this article, as it goes on to say, one is the allocation of the cost of catering at the factory and at the track. In addition, there are believed to be redundancy and sick pay issues related to key employees. A subject more directly involved with the cost of running the cars is the allocation of the value of unused spare parts. This is where things get a bit more interesting, as it goes on to say, they were passed to the Heritage Department at the end of the season for use on show cars and any testing of the 2021 model in 2022, which falls outside of the cap restrictions. And then it goes on to say in the bottom three lines, or not three lines, but more than that, just the bottom bit here, it's understood that the FIA issued a clarification in June this year, 3 months after teams submitted their documents about how such parts were to be considered by teams. I'll get more into that in a second. And then it goes on to say, finally, there is also a UK-specific tax issue, which is believed to be similar to a procedural breach involving Aston Martin. And then goes on to say, if Horner does speak on Friday, he's expected to give further details on the team's position in all areas. Now, when it says about how, when it gets into the cost of running the cars, is the allocation of value, or the value of unused spare parts, and then it goes on to say, it is understood that the FIA issued a clarification in June of 2022, this year, 3 months after the team submitted the financial documents about how such parts were to be considered by teams. Basically, what that means is Red Bull, based on what the rules were in the late part of 2021, they believe, and it appears by the regulations, we're doing the right thing in terms of unused spare parts, because you can see in this article it says they were passed to the heritage department at the end of the season for use on show cars and any testing of the 2021 model in 2022. And again, it says which falls outside the cap restrictions. So Red Bull, at the time of doing that, if that is indeed what they did, and I have to stress as well, this article, obviously the people writing this article, they will be a lot closer to the people who are in the know about this situation, so they're a lot closer to the truth than people like me. But, you know, they don't know still for sure what is actually going on. So this is, you know, the closest thing really we've got to the full facts of the situation. But if it is true that, you know, Red Bull, you know, had unused spare parts and they were passed to the heritage department for use on show cars and, yeah, any testing on the 2021 model, as it says there, and then the FIA, you know, a few months later and 3 months after the teams have submitted their documents, issue a clarification, which is essentially a change in the regulations in this area, then I don't see what Red Bull really could have done about this. It's really the FIA's fault. The FIA should, you know, stop issuing clarifications and should just be, you know, very clear and black and white with, you know, what is and isn't allowed. And if that is what has caused, and maybe the majority of why Red Bull have gone over the cap, then you can't really, if this is true as to why, or the reason why Red Bull have gone over the cap, you can't really blame Red Bull massively for this. This is more of an FIA issue. And I've got to say, the FIA, no surprise, have acted pretty poorly in this whole saga, which I'll get onto a bit more in a moment. But yeah, if that is true, you know, this whole unused spare part thing and the FIA issuing a clarification after it was too late, then I think the FIA is more at fault there than Red Bull, I have to say. But now let me get into an Automotor and Sport article, which gets into some more details about the possible punishment and what is going to happen with Red Bull going forward. Now, this article, I believe, came out on the Friday of the Grand Prix weekend, maybe the Saturday morning. Not entirely sure exactly when the article came out, but it was definitely before, I believe, qualifying got underway in Austin. And this is what they had to say. And of course, Automotor and Sport, they are very reliable in their reporting. I think they were the first to report this whole thing. You know, Red Bull and Aston Martin being over the cap for 2021 before the FIA even confirmed what was going on. And of course, they have plenty of people quite close to the people in the know. So some of their information does actually turn out to be the absolute truth. So let's read some of their article, which I'll as well post in the description of this video. So what it says here is the more interesting part happened off the track. Everything revolved around Red Bull's offence in the budget cap affair. The racing team has known for a week what punishment it faces. Allegedly, they say, a deduction of 25% of the wind tunnel time for the coming season, plus a fine. Apparently, so if I go back to this, this tweet, confirming the news that the FIA had made an offer to Red Bull for the terms of an accepted breach agreement. That is basically what this article is saying, is that that is what the offer was in terms of a punishment. A 25% reduction in wind tunnel time for next year, plus a probably sizable but nothing major type of fine. So that's basically confirming what the offer was there by the FIA. And then it goes on to say a retroactive punishment with a point deduction for 2021 should be off the table. Red Bull, though, is said to have disagreed with the cost cap administrator's proposal. The process then continues. And then it goes on to say, in Austin, team boss Christian Horner contacted FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem, supposedly to make him a counter-suggestion as to what punishment one could live with, which I've got to say, this whole you know, the FIA trying to negotiate a punishment with the team that have broken the rules is so wrong. It's totally wrong, and it just does scream, unfortunately, corruption. If a team has broken the rules, there should not be any room for negotiation with that team that has broken the rules as to what their punishment is going to be. The FIA, they are the regulators of Formula One. They should be, you know, giving Red Bull what they think is the appropriate punishment, and then Red Bull have to accept it. There should be no room for negotiation. This is just, a really terrible thing that I've seen with this whole situation. And then it goes on to say, on the outside, this gives the impression that guilt and atonement can be negotiated like in a bazaar. I'm not quite sure what that means, but obviously converted from German to English, this article. And it says, however, Ben Sulayem can at best act as a neutral observer in the matter. The process is entirely in the hands of independent examiners and judges should a hearing occur when the two parties cannot agree. Apparently, Horner can't decide for himself how he wants to either. The scope of the case is so great that the Mateschitz family must be consulted in any case. Of course, when this article was published, I think it was a day later when it was announced, sadly, that Dietrich Mateschitz had passed away, and of course, rest in peace to him. But that's how serious this whole case is. And then it goes on to say, finally, this is not just about the Formula One team, but the image of the brand. This has reportedly already led to some delays. From the FIA's point of view, it is up to Red Bull how quickly the process ends. If an agreement is reached with the cost cap administrator, the file can be closed immediately. If it goes to court, the matter can drag on for another 6 months. So that's what it has to say there. And they also, I think in a different article, went on to say, maybe the day after this other article came out, that the FIA and Red Bull reportedly have agreed or come to an agreement on the punishment, but because of the news about Dietrich Mateschitz's sad death, they decided to postpone the announcement. So we are probably going to get an announcement, and I really hope we do get an announcement at the Mexico City Grand Prix this weekend, say in, I don't know, 3 or 4 days from now. That would be ideal, to be honest. But again, I really don't like this whole negotiating, the FIA, the people that run the sport, negotiating with a team that has broken the rules as to what the punishment should be. It doesn't, it unfortunately in this case is working like that, but it should not work like that. If you look at other instances in F1, where, for example, the stewards will give penalties to certain drivers and teams. Yes, they bring those drivers and teams in to hear their side of the story, but they don't negotiate with them what the penalty or punishment should be. They hear their side of the story, and then they give whatever punishment they think is fair. That is how it is supposed to work in F1. But yeah, this just screams of corruption, unfortunately. And yeah, that's all of the updates pretty much we have had to this story so far. And we hope this weekend in Mexico, we will get further updates to this. Let me know, guys, in the comment section down below. What do you think should be the appropriate punishment for Red Bull, given the information I just went through there? And just what do you think of this whole situation so far? Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. But until my next video, it's been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye. So that, guys, is a video that I uploaded on Tuesday. Again, make sure to go check it out if you want to hear from what, was going on at the time. But I can confirm that the rumours, which they were at the time, that I was going through there in that video, which again was uploaded on Tuesday. So yes, it was an old video. Those rumours have been basically now confirmed to be true. So good reporting there by those certain journalists and getting, down to the truth. But let's now get into the actual announcement of what has happened now with this whole situation. So here is the series of tweets from Chris Medland going through it. So Red Bull, and this was 5 hours ago, I think it was 5.5 hours ago, Red Bull have been given a $7 million fine and a 10% reduction in hold on, I've not actually cut to my screen share. Let me actually do it this time. There you go. Here it is, Chris Medland's tweet. So here is what he tweeted a few hours ago. Breaking: Red Bull have been given a $7 million fine, which, by the way, does not come out of their cap. So that's just a $7 million fine on its own, which to Red Bull doesn't make a difference. And a 10% reduction in car development time for budget cap breach. The breach was £1,864,000, also known as $2.2 million or 1.6%. But the FIA acknowledged that if a tax credit that they were awarded Red Bull had been correctly applied, then the amount would have been £432,652 that they would have gone over by, which is $500,000 or 0.37%. So in reality, it was 0.37% that they went over, but because they didn't apply or claim that tax credit for whatever reason, that's why it ended up being £1.8 million. And then it goes on, as Chris says, the accepted breach agreement states there is no accusation or evidence that Red Bull Racing has sought at any time to act in bad faith, dishonestly, or in any fraudulent manner, nor has it willfully concealed any information from the cost cap administration. And then Chris goes on to say 13 points are highlighted as areas that were incorrectly interpreted by Red Bull, including catering, unused parts and power units, and needed revising that led to the final 1.6 overspend figure. And then he goes on to say, Chris, that the reduction in wind tunnel time and CFD time will be over the next 12 months, so starting from now. There was some confusion that maybe it would start in a year's time, but no, starting from now, that 10% reduction in wind tunnel and CFD time will begin from now on, which, I mean, is significant, but it isn't as big as some people may think. Now, I'll just cut back to this whilst I get up the actual FIA statement and then the document going through the cost cap breach. So let me just get up the statement on the FIA website, and I'll just zoom it in, or is it already zoomed in a bit? It is, right. So I'll just get it back on screen for you guys. Here you go. So this is their statement. They say, following the submission of all required documentation by all the Formula One teams, the cost cap administration carried out the first ever review process. And then it goes on to say, Red Bull Racing was found to be in breach. However, the cost cap administration recognized that Red Bull Racing has acted cooperative, I can't even say that word. You know what I mean? They've cooperated with the process, as it says there, and has sought to provide additional information and evidence when requested in a timely manner, that this is the first year of the full application of the financial regulations, and that there is no accusation or evidence that Red Bull has sought at any time, as Chris got into there, with, you know, where he quoted this part of the statement where it says, Red Bull Racing at any time did not act in bad faith, dishonestly, or in fraudulent manner, nor is it willfully concealed any information. In these circumstances, cost cap administration offered to Red Bull Racing an accepted breach agreement to resolve this matter, and the offer was accepted by Red Bull Racing. Now, let's get into the full details here, and we'll go through it in this PDF, which gets into the whole situation. So, the first three paragraphs there are basically what we just read out. So let's now get into it. So the ABA concerns. Red Bull submitted relevant costs reported in its 2021 full year reporting documentation. They submitted the figure of $114,293,000 So £114.2 million. Goes on to say in the second bullet point, subsequent to the findings of the Cost Cap Administration, a procedural breach committed by Red Bull pursuant to Article 8.2 of the financial regulations due to the submission of inaccurate full-year reporting documentation in respect of the full-year reporting period ending on 31st of December 2021 because it inaccurately excluded and/or adjusted costs amounting to a total of £5.6 million in its 2021 full-year reporting documentation. So, yeah, that's, not great there from Red Bull with the second bullet point. And then the third one says, consequently, a minor overspend breach committed by Red Bull under Article 8.10b of the financial regulations because its relevant costs as adjusted by the FIA exceeded the 2021 cost cap of £118 million by less than 5%, namely £1.8 million, or i.e. 1.6%. So now, let's get into the summary of the sanctions. And you remember Chris Medland said there were 13 issues raised. Here are all 13. And I think most of them we'll be able to get into here what the actual area that they went over in. So it says, summary of ABA terms and sanctions. In accordance with the findings of the Cost Cap Administration, Red Bull Racing has acknowledged that the reporting documentation submitted by it included the following: incorrectly excluded and/or adjusted costs. And let's get into it. So number one is overstated excluded costs concerning catering services. So obviously that rumour came out a couple of weeks ago, and it did actually turn out to be true. So apologies to Eric Van Heeren, I think it was, who I said was reporting bullshit. And yeah, apologies to him because he was actually bang on the money there. But obviously that first one has nothing to do with, car development and improving the car. So that has absolutely nothing to do with their on-track performance. Number two is costs pursuant to Article 3.1 of the financial regulations concerning consideration and associated employers' social security contributions. I think social security contributions in the UK, I think that might be... Is the translation to the UK, is it national insurance, possibly? Because I know social security is a thing that they have in America. I will admit, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to, tax and that in general, but I'm pretty sure that's what that has to do with. And again, that has nothing to do with trackside performance and the performance of the car and team. So that's the first two that, they went over by that have nothing to do with the performance of the car. Number three, costs pursuant to Article 3.1 of the financial regulations in respect of non-F1 activities, as those costs had already been offset within the total cost of the reporting group. So, yeah, non-F1 activities is, I think, stuff like, I'm trying to think what it actually could relate to. I think it might relate to, like, stuff they do at the Monaco Grand Prix maybe sometimes on the yacht they have. I think maybe that relates to non-F1 activities, I think. Again, I'll have to delve into this more and do more research because I've only just really gone through this in the last couple hours. And then number four, costs pursuant to Article 3.1 of the financial regulations in respect of bonus and associated employers' social security contributions. So the same as number two, but also the bonuses included in that one. Again, nothing to do with the performance of the car. Number five is understatement of relevant costs in respect of a gain on disposal of fixed assets by failing to make the necessary upwards adjustment. The FIA did not disclose what the assets were, I believe. So, yeah, I don't really know right now what to say about that. But again, I don't believe that has anything to do with the performance of the car. Number six, costs pursuant to Article 3.1 concerning apprenticeship levies. Again, I'm not 100% sure what that means. But again, I don't think that has anything to do with the performance of the car. I think that'd have to do with, what is it, apprenticeships for certain personnel, possibly. Again, I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to sit here and claim that I know what that means. But again, I don't believe that has anything to do, again, with the performance of the car. And then furthermore, number 7, costs pursuant to Article 3.1 concerning consideration and associated employers' social security contributions. So that's the third one concerning employers' social security contributions. So yeah, quite a few of those. Number 8, understatement of relevant costs in respect of provisions set forth by Article 4.1a of the financial regulations concerning the cost of use of power units. Now, when it says that, that doesn't mean that they've spent too much money developing the power unit, because I think the financial regulations have, I think with the power units, I think they have their own separate regulations financially for the power units and how much you can spend and what you can do with them. I think this is in relation where it says concerning the cost of use of power units to how much they spent on taking the Honda power units from Honda in 2021. I think that's what that has to do with there. Again, I'll have to go into, I'll have to properly research this, because I am actually going to do a video on this probably during the winter break. So you can expect me to do that in hopefully, I don't know, a couple months' time. Number 9, cost pursuant to Article 3.1 concerning consideration and, again, employers' social security contributions. So another one there. Number 10, understatement of relevant costs in respect of provisions set forth by Article 4.1 concerning use of inventories. I might sound dumb, but I don't actually know what an inventory is. But again, I'm pretty sure that has nothing to do with on-track performance of the car. Number 11, clerical error in respect of Red Bull Racing's calculation of certain costs, recharged to it by Red Bull Powertrains Limited. So I think, yeah, that was just an error that they were talking about there, which was actually reported a couple of weeks ago, that it might actually be something to do with Red Bull Powertrains, that new company being set up, I think, last year for this year. And then the final 2 is certain travel costs pursuant to Article 3.1 of the financial regulations and costs of maintenance pursuant to Article 3.1 of the financial regulations. And then it says, and further that consequently, its relevant costs for 2021 reporting period exceeded the 2021 cost cap by £1.8 million. And then here it gets into the penalties itself. So if you want to have a quick read of that, you can just have a quick stare. And Red Bull, it does say, must pay the financial penalty of $7 million within 30 days of the execution of the ABA, the Accepted Breach Agreement, which was a couple days ago. I think the agreement was finalised officially. So, yeah, they'll probably pay that this weekend, or probably, I don't know, next week when they get back to the factory or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is, and again, I will get into this in a further video where I'll go into more detail, I'll, properly research it and make sure that my arguments are airtight. When you look at the 13 reasons here that the FIA had an issue with, none of them relate to the performance of the car on the track. Now, factually, yes, Red Bull did breach the cost cap. That is a fact. I am not denying that, but I am not going to sit here and claim that Red Bull, say, quote, cheated, or that they gained an unfair advantage when they didn't. Because again, when you look at these 13 reasons, none of these, and I'm pretty sure when I go into, my proper research, which I'll be doing for the video, again, that will come out during the winter break, I'm pretty sure that will just further confirm that none of these reasons have anything to do with the on-track performance of the car. So, yes, they did break the cost cap, and the FIA, they've given their penalty, and the FIA, thankfully, they have followed their own rules. Red Bull committed a minor spend breach of the regulations, and they were given a penalty that was on offer to the FIA with their own regulations. So at least the FIA followed their own regulations through this whole process, and they've done nothing wrong in this situation, the FIA, in terms of the process that they've come to in terms of finalizing a penalty. I still don't think it should be a thing that the FIA and a team should be able to negotiate the punishment. I still don't think that's right, and I think if you want to have a properly fair, clean sport, that should not be a thing. Because we don't see it in other sports that are cleaner than Formula One, no doubt about it. But again, when you look at all of these reasons, they don't relate to the performance of the car. So, 10% reduction on their wind tunnel time. I'll just cut back to this, and I will cut onto these pictures quickly, the slideshow I had earlier. So, yeah, they've been given a 10% reduction of wind tunnel time and a $7 million fine. Christian Horner, who did a press conference a couple hours after that all was, announced, said that the reduction in wind tunnel time will cost them between a quarter of a second and half a second per lap, say towards the second half of 2023, when that will really take effect, which is significant, but only if Red Bull are actually in a close fight with another team in the championship. If Red Bull turn up at the start of next season with a car that's miles quicker than everyone else, then it won't matter, because they'll still win the championship by an absolute mile, just like they have in 2022. But in my opinion, even though the cost cap is there, the regulations are there, the FIA, they followed the process correctly, they followed their own regulations correctly, and the penalty they gave them was within the regulations as to what penalty that Red Bull could have been given, I don't believe that Red Bull should be getting this penalty, because none of those reasons I just went through on the screen, those 13 reasons, none of them relate to on-track performance. And the cost cap was brought in to stop teams spending way too much money on making their car quicker. That's the reason it was brought in. It wasn't brought in to cap teams spending too much on catering or too much on social security, social security contributions, or travel costs, or maintenance, or whatever you want to call it, or the use of inventories. It wasn't brought in for that reason. It was brought in solely to stop teams spending too much money on the development of their car. And Red Bull, in all of those reasons or things that the FIA took issue with that I just went through, none of them relate to Red Bull illegally making their car faster. So in the end, Red Bull, in regards to the development of their 2021 car, in my view, did not cheat at all. And I don't think they should have been given a punishment, because my belief was that the cost cap was supposed to be, and it is really the idea behind the cost cap, is to stop teams overspending or spending so much absurd amount of money on developing their cars. When again, all of the stuff I went through there has nothing to do with developing your car. So in my view, the punishment is too harsh. I wouldn't have given them a punishment. I think in terms of the 10% reduction, again, I wouldn't have given them that, because I don't see how they've gained anything from the violations they've committed there. I would have given them a fine still because, they've maybe, because they've gone over with those other things that don't relate to on-track performance. You could still give them a fine for that. But a 10% reduction in wind tunnel time, in my view, is too harsh. So let me know, guys, in the live chat, do you agree or disagree with my point of view? Do you think the penalty they were given was fair, too lenient, too harsh? Let me know in the live chat, and I will get to your comments soon. But the next thing I want to get into is the Fernando Alonso penalty from the US Grand Prix that was reversed yesterday. So let me just quickly find the document if I can. And then I'll throw it up on screen. And let's see if I can find anything. No, I think I'll probably have to go to the US Grand Prix documents. Let me just have a quick look there. And no, I don't think it's here either. Let me have a quick look. And no, can't see it on the FIA website, which is annoying. But I will quickly get up Chris Medland's tweets about the situation. And then we will get into this news about Alonso's penalty being overturned. But again, let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree with Red Bull's penalty there. Again, I disagree because I don't see, I just don't see at all how they have gained from that overspend on those certain parts of their team. And yes, objectively, factually, they did overspend. But you cannot prove to me, and I don't think you can prove to anyone, that Red Bull illegally developed their car by spending too much money on their car in 2021. I don't think you can prove that if anyone wants to attempt to prove it. So here we go. So here's Chris Medland's tweet. Let me just get on the screen. So Alpine's the admissibility or their protest, Alpine, was thrown out by the FIA. So what Alpine did was they submitted a right of review of the whole situation, and Alpine ended up winning the review. The Haas protest was declared and is declared null and void. So Alonso has been reinstated to P7 for the US Grand Prix. And let me get into a couple more tweets regarding this situation. Alpine successfully argued that it wasn't impossible for Haas to meet the 30-minute deadline to lodge a protest. It could have done so with a handwritten submission, despite the FIA telling Haas it had an hour and that the stewards didn't have the power to extend the deadline. Stewards are still concerned at the damaged car being left unaddressed during the race, though, and wants procedures in place moving forward. And decision adds that the FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, has initiated a review into the use of the black and orange flag in general. So, yeah, Alpine have won that on a technicality, meaning that this is what the championship standings now look like. So the top 7 is exactly the same as it was after the US Grand Prix. And then Ocon loses a point because obviously he did gain from Alonso's penalty into getting into P10. So Ocon is back down to 78 points. Alonso is now up to 71 points with Bottas in 10th. The biggest area, though, it affects, of course, is the Constructors' Championship. So the top 3 teams, they are still as they were. But Alpine, instead of being 6 points clear of McLaren, they are now 11 points clear of the McLaren team. Still doable that McLaren can catch Alpine in the championship. There's only 3 races to go, I know, but it's still doable. But this, them winning the right to review protest, I guess you could call it, has absolutely helped them in their aim to finish 4th in the championship. Alfa Romeo are still 6th, but Aston Martin, instead of being a point behind them like they were with Alonso's penalty, they are now just 3 points behind them, so 2 points worse off. But I still think Aston Martin are in very good nick to get ahead of Alfa Romeo in the championship. Haas are 8th, AlphaTauri are 9th. The gap has shrunk by a point between those 2 teams. They're still very close there, and Williams are last in the championship. But it does benefit Alpine massively in keeping that 7th place result from the US Grand Prix. So let me know, guys, in the chat, do you agree with Alonso not being punished or having his penalty reversed? Let me know in the chat. One thing I am going to do quickly is that. So we've got 59 minutes to go, guys, until practice 2 begins in Mexico. The hour-and-a-half session, of course, because they're doing some tyre testing for Pirelli as well. Hopefully it's not as boring as practice 2 last week when we had a similar situation. But yeah, let me know right now, guys, in the live chat. Do you agree with what I was saying about the whole Red Bull cost cap penalty thing? Or disagree? Let me know in the chat. And for Alonso and his reversed penalty, do you agree or disagree with that? My view is that at the end of the day, the reason Alpine had it overturned, the penalty, was, again, it was a technical issue, really, with the way Haas submitted their protest. But at the end of the day, the stewards or the race control should have done something about it in the race. And if they had done something about it and waved the black and orange flag, Alonso would have had to have come into the pits, and that would have cost him at least 20 seconds to his Grand Prix. So Alonso did actually deserve to finish outside the points, but because the FIA are incompetent and because Haas were actually told by a person from the FIA that they could still submit their protest, when actually it turned out it was too late in reality. Yeah, it was just incompetence all around in terms of the whole procedure and process from the FIA. But yeah, Alpine have got away with it there because, again, if the rules were followed correctly and Alpine's the Alpine car of Fernando Alonso was given a black and orange flag, Alonso would not have finished in the points last weekend in America. So yeah, a bit lucky there, Fernando. But in the end, that's what's happened. And to be honest, he deserves some luck going his way because he's had a pretty unlucky 2022 season. But yeah, guys, let me know in the chat what you think of all those situations. And quickly as well, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because of course we're doing the practice 2 watch along as practice 2 starts in just under an hour from now, and then tomorrow we'll be live for the qualifying preview just before practice 3. That will be going live at 4 p.m. UK time, a couple hours before practice 3. And then I'll be doing a practice 3 watch along from 5:45 till 7 p.m. UK time. 7 till 9 p.m, build up to qualifying. 9 till 10 p.m. UK time, qualifying watch along. And then a reaction to the session for at least half an hour after. And for everyone watching the stream, don't forget to smash the like button as well, obviously to help the channel. Let me just quickly, though, read out a super chat from Anton M for £5. Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate that. There's Chaz, Red Bull thinking they were within the limit on non-F1 aspects of the budget cap meant they could spend more money on their sporting development. That is true. But did they intentionally do that? That's what you need to figure out. Did they on purpose spend as much as they could within the cap on car development and then let those things go over? Or did those things go over because Red Bull thought they fell outside of the cap? Which, to be honest, I'm I was sure those things fell outside of the cap. So, yeah. And it has also been reported, and again, when I get that video out for you guys during the winter about the whole situation, it was reported, and I will make sure to mention in that video, that the majority of their violation in terms of the amount of money spent or overspent went on those unused parts that I talked about a week ago. And, you know, Red Bull believed, and also I think at the time, the FIA financial regulations, I'm pretty sure stated, or the FIA had said beforehand, that unused parts were absolutely fine. But then 3 months after the documents were submitted, the FIA changed their mind. So, yeah, we need to really, to get to the very bottom of it and to come to a very good final conclusion for whatever you think of the situation, we need to do, like, proper research into this whole thing. And I will be doing that, again, for a video coming out during the winter. So, what I say at the moment, I just want to be clear, is not my final thoughts on the situation. Because, again, I want to do the research and I want to look at everything and come to my final conclusions. But my initial reaction at the moment is that Red Bull did not gain anything with, you know, with what they did. But thank you for the super chat, by the way, Anton. Very much appreciated. Let me now get into some other comments in the chat, as we've got just under an hour to go until practice 2. Which area was Michael Massey's bonus payoff accounted to? Asks Ewok. Paul James Squibb says Social Security translates to employer national insurance contributions. Yeah, I was pretty sure that's what that was. So yeah, but again, I'll have to look deeper into it to conclude what all of those 13 reasons they went over mean in the end. Menho says, I just can't believe any of this. It's just laughable for multi-million-pound business with accounts and big firms. Paul James Squibb says, so basically Red Bull were understating how much they were paying for things, trying to play down their costs, the exact opposite of politicians that always try to make out their expenses are higher. Yeah, so, yeah, you had that, but I think also Red Bull were, and again, I'm not saying this is my final position on this, but I believe Red Bull believed that certain things that they actually ended up breaking the rules in terms of, you know, like catering and travel costs and all of that. They believed that they were within the rules, which is why a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was actually like 3 or 4 weeks ago in Singapore, they said that they believed that they were within the cost cap. So, yeah. Mendo says Red Bull to pay my mate Dave. He was sick. Solid Snack says Chaz W. Cheers for that. And also says agree 100%. Way too harsh. Paul James Squibb says, I'm pretty sure other teams will argue that claiming less money was spent on other things allowed them to spend more of the total budget on car development, maybe? Yeah, but again, I need to look into it more to come up with a final conclusion myself. And Delangelo Williams says, penalty for Red Bull was fair, Chazza, but the, quote, negotiation determine the penalty I'm not for at all. The 25% reduction in wind tunnel time would have sent a serious message. 10% is light for me. Well, the thing is, if it was £1.8 million over the cap and all of that 1.8 million went on car development, then yeah, 10% would have been way too lenient. Really, they should have been getting like at least like a 40%. reduction in wind tunnel time if that 1.8 million had gone on car development. Again, though, we have to remember that 1.4 of the 1.8 million was a tax credit that they didn't claim. So we need to remember that as well, because that wasn't actually included in the FIA document. So we must remember this. None of the exceeded amounts went on the car. The receipts prove it's a solid snack. Indeed. I mean, yeah, again, you can absolutely make the argument that maybe they spent as much as they could legally up to the legal limit of the cap on car development and then let those things go over. But again, we don't know for sure whether they did that on... Let's say they did do that on purpose, then yeah, they've really got away with it here. But we don't know that. We absolutely don't know that. And we have to remember as well, Aston Martin were also found guilty of a procedural breach. And they also failed or underestimated or underreported, I think, certain costs of certain things that they ended up overspending on, such as decks and chairs was also included in Aston Martin's breach of the cost cap. So yeah, not great. Let me find some other comments here in the chat if I can. Solid Snack says, Alonso definitely shouldn't have had the penalty in the first place. FIA never gave Alpine a meatball flag, so how were they to know? That is true. I mean, he wasn't given the flag. That is absolutely true. But he should have been given the flag. So if the FIA had actually done what they're supposed to, Alonso would have been given, well, not been given, but he would have suffered a 20-second at least penalty by coming into the pits. So, yeah. Josiah says, yeah, if Alonso got the black and orange flag, he wouldn't have scored the same way if my grandma had wheels should be a bike. Let me have a look. Some other comments in the chat if I can. Ken Wallace says, penalty was light for me. Rain Ninja says he shouldn't have been punished in the first place in terms of Alonso. And Dex and Chairs, Aston Martin is preparing for Alonso's arrival, indeed. Let me just quickly, though, do a poll in the chat of, what you guys think. Do you think Red Bull were given the correct punishment, or do you think they were, the FIA too harsh, or were they too fair to them? Let me just quickly do that poll quickly. Do you think Red Bull's cost cap punishment was fair? So I'll just put a question mark on the end of question. So I will just post this quickly in chat, this poll. So yeah, make sure, guys, to vote on that poll at the top of the chat. Do you think Red Bull's cost cap punishment was fair? Yes or no? Let me know right now. And that poll. And then I will, look at the results and see what you guys think further, because I'm sure you guys have got plenty more comments in relation to this whole saga, as we've got 45 minutes to go until practice 2 gets underway. And I'm just praying that practice 2 does not turn out to be a Pirelli tyre test session like practice 2 was a week ago in America, because if we get that again, I will be very pissed off, I have to say. So yeah, I'll let some votes just accumulate in the poll quickly. How many votes have we got so far? 8. So 62% at the moment saying no, the punishment was not fair for Red Bull. Now the yes vote is slightly coming back against the no vote. And one thing to quickly mention is that, you know, with the 10% reduction in wind tunnel and CFD time between now and the end of October 2023, that will have an effect. But if at the start of next season, like I was saying like 20-30 minutes ago, if at the start of next season they are, you know, half a second or more quicker than the rest of the field, then it doesn't matter. They'll win the championship anyway. But if they are in close competition with Mercedes, for example, then yeah, that is a big advantage for Mercedes. Not just that, but also the fact that Mercedes will have, I think overall, 20 to 25% more time in the wind tunnel for 2023 now than Red Bull will have. Because Red Bull's the amount of wind tunnel time they were allowed was originally 70%, and it's been lowered to 63%. The reason it's only been lowered to 63% is because of some sort of mathematical equation that I can't be fucked to get into right now. I will, though, in that video that I'll do on this situation, I will get into why it's only gone down to 63%. But yeah, if their main contenders and Mercedes, you know, being their main contenders, if they're actually properly close to Red Bull on pace and it's a close season, then yeah, that 10% reduction will hurt Red Bull. There is no doubt about that. But if their main competitors are Ferrari, I don't think it will have as much of an effect as people think. Because Ferrari, despite having, you know, a lot of resources at hand and supposedly talented people, they have not been able to develop a car successfully throughout a season for about 15 years or more. We've seen so many times in the last decade, Ferrari start the season pretty well, and then they just don't really improve. They just stay pretty much as they were at the start of the season for the whole season, and teams like Red Bull and Mercedes end up improving as the season goes on. Red Bull normally are the team that improves the most during a Formula 1 season, and they have definitely been one of the top, say, 5 teams that has improved the most during 2022. So people do need to remember that again, with the 10% reduction, I mean, yes, it is significant. It's not absolutely gigantic like some people are trying to make out. There's some people online that are trying to make out like Red Bull are going to be a midfield team or something. No, 10% is not going to make that much of a difference. As Christian Horner was saying, it will cost Red Bull in the second half of the season about 3 to 4 tenths of a second is how much it'll cost Red Bull in the end. Which again, it's significant, but it depends on where they are at the start of the season compared to Ferrari and Mercedes and the rest of the field, and who their main competitors are for the championship. So we will see. But definitely for Mercedes-Benz, this is great for them going into next season, because if they do turn up with a car much closer to the front of the field at the first race in Bahrain, then they know that you know, they can definitely take the fight to Red Bull, possibly in the championship. But we've had how many votes so far? About 20 votes. I'll wait for a couple more, and then I'll end the poll and see what the results are in the end. There was, though, talk of a 25% reduction in wind tunnel time for 2023, or for the next year or so, which is, quite significant. If that actually happened, and that's the punishment Red Bull was given, then they would, in the second half of 2023, compared to teams that would be able to develop even more their cars compared to Red Bull having suffered that penalty, if that's, what actually happened to them rather than the 10% reduction. Red Bull, instead of being cost 3 or 4 tenths of a second in the second half of next season, they would be cost probably, well, at least half a second, if not, 7, 8 tenths of a second. So could have been a lot worse for Red Bull than it actually has turned out to be. So they should think themselves lucky in certain respects that it wasn't a worse punishment from the FIA. But yeah, 10% is still significant. 25% would have been, quite big and would have affected their season massively. But yeah, the 10% reduction is what they have been given. And I think I'll now end the poll and we'll see what you guys have said. So 24 votes in total. Thank you guys for voting. The question was, do you think Red Bull's cost cap punishment was fair? And 58% of you said yes, and 41% said no. So yeah, you guys thinking it was the fair punishment? Right, let me have a look in chat to see. We'll read out some more comments. Hank M asks, will they investigate from who Toto Wolff got the FIA info? I'm not sure they will. That's probably hitting a bit too close to home for the FIA, because they do have a certain someone working for them who maybe was a part of Mercedes in the past. But yeah, I think Toto Wolff and Matteo Binotto have been a bit too extreme in the end on their criticisms of Red Bull, because, again, we went through it there. It wasn't as bad as they were claiming. But let me get into some more comments in the chat. Again, keep letting me know what you think of the whole situation and the penalty they were given. Do you think it was fair or not? Josiah says it is a tyre test. They'll have 17%. Not sure what you're talking about there. I think you might actually be talking about the difference in wind tunnel testing time, maybe, there in the chat. Josiah goes on to say, I don't even think it's possible to go full Ferrari rooks just when you think they can't get any worse. They always outdo themselves. Sparky Pete says they needed a bigger penalty. Anders Ericsson says, measure the fine against Red Bull gain by breaking the rules does not match. I don't see how they've gained. I really don't see how they've gained, to be honest. I don't, and again, I'll probably say this in the video that I'm going to do in winter break. I challenge anyone out there, and I mean anyone, to prove to me that Red Bull, that the overspend went on car development. I don't think there's anyone out there who can prove it, because at the end of the day, that was the real crux of the accusation, is that Red Bull illegally developed their car in 2021. So yeah, if anyone wants to stand up for that challenge, then let me know. But I don't think anyone can prove that they actually, illegally developed their car. Sid or CID says, seems fair enough. They just need to be consistent from here on out. Checo winning this weekend would be legendary. Keep up the good work, Chazza. Thank you very much. Let's see if there's any more comments in the chat that I can read out. Rooksfoot says it's not necessary that the FIA, it's not necessarily that FIA making bad decisions. It's just that BITD, not quite sure what that means. FIA were quicker at making, or back in the day, I think that's what you mean. Back in the day, FIA were quicker at making bad decisions so long after the race. Yeah. Yeah, it has become a thing, unfortunately, with the FIA that they take way longer in submitting, or not submitting, in publishing penalties and stuff. And this has been a thing since 2019 that I can remember. The first time I remember it happening was Austria 2019. You guys may remember that. Maybe you were a viewer of the channel back then, because obviously I did a watch along for that race in particular, where we got a great race. And then Verstappen and Leclerc, they had a clash at turn 3. And then the FIA took, what was it, 3 hours, was it? 3-4 hours to come to a conclusion as to whether Max was going to have a penalty or not. And yeah, ever since then, it's just been the common theme. I mean, maybe, yeah, you want to take longer time to think it over, hear from certain drivers and teams. But to be honest, I don't think the FIA stewards a lot of the time need to actually hear from certain drivers and teams. If it doesn't actually give them any new information and doesn't affect, in the end, their judgment of the situation, I don't see why they need to ask all the teams and drivers what they thought. I just don't get it. Paul James Squibbs asks, is the cost cap split into separate categories, catering, wages, car development, etc.? Or is it one budget and everything taken together has to total less than the limit? I'm pretty sure it is in separate categories. We have, the cap that Red Bull have broken. We have a, power unit cost cap, which, again, there's separate regulations for. But I was pretty sure that anything that had nothing to do with, on-track car development, anything like that, was not counted in the cost cap, which is why I am a bit miffed as to why those things were included in that report. But again, I need to delve deeper into it and do proper, research for it, because I can't come to a final conclusion that quickly. So, yeah. Paul asks, what I mean is, could you spend less on catering and more on car development? I mean, yeah, I'm sure you could save money on certain things, but, yeah. Again, I'll have to look into it to see, well, not to see how it all works, because I have a general idea, but to, again, come to my own best conclusion as to the whole situation. Just I'm looking at Twitter quickly to see if there's any breaking news I can bring you guys, possibly. And there was actually something about the Mercedes front wing I wanted to get into, but I think I've scrolled past it. I'm going to try and find it. One thing I can bring you guys in terms of news is that Jack Doohan, who was in Esteban Ocon's car in practice 1, his session came to an early finish because they stopped the car as a precaution. Maybe some sort of issue with the power unit or something. We know that they are unreliable. Our Alpine. And let me see if I can find that Mercedes front wing news. Because I did see it 20-30 minutes ago or something. Let me try and find it quick. Toto Wolff said it is reputational damage for Red Bull with the cost cap punishment. Which, I mean, yeah, it is. But I don't think in reality they actually did anything really wrong. And yeah, just trying to see if I can find it. And there we go. So Mercedes have made modifications to their front wing because they, quote, just couldn't be bothered fighting with the FIA about the legality of the new front wing that they brought to the US Grand Prix that I think they are running this weekend. May have already run it in practice 1. So, yeah, if they do run it for the weekend, I'll be curious to see what effect it has. And let's see if I can find anything else. And no, I can't. So I'll come back to you guys in the chat. Keep your comments coming. And again, let me know. Was Red Bull fairly punished by the FIA for their cost cap? For that, them breaching the cost cap, and for the Fernando Alonso penalty being overturned. Do you think that was a good decision by the FIA, or do you disagree, or what do you think of that as well? Let me know in the live chat, as we've got just under 30 minutes to go until practice 2 gets underway. And obviously we'll have all of the proper race drivers in the car for practice 2. Let me just have a look in the chat to see what you guys are saying quick. Mercedes given up, a shame. Let me show this comment quick. Jean Tot looks like a ball bag. That's some great analysis there. But trying to see if there's any other news quickly on Twitter. Sometimes we do get some news. I'm just trying to see if there's anything, and no, I don't think there is. So yeah, if you've got any questions for me relating to F1 that you want to ask, or any comments you want to post about F1 in general, then make sure to post it in the next 20-25 minutes or so, and then I'll get into your comments. One thing I'm going to do quickly is have a drink, because obviously streaming for a while does hurt throat, and I've been live so far on this stream for an hour and 20 minutes almost, and I was alive. Thankfully I am alive. I was live for an hour and 15 minutes earlier, so yeah, quite a long day so far. And one thing I can announce, actually, is that today will be the final day of the season where I'll be doing Friday practice streams. The reason, it's not because I don't enjoy doing them, it's because next Grand Prix weekend in Brazil in 2 weeks' time, it's the sprint race that is returning, so there won't be 3 practice sessions. There'll be the 1 practice session on the Friday, then qualifying on the Friday night. Saturday afternoon, there'll be practice 2, and then the sprint race on Saturday night, and then on Sunday night, there'll be the actual Grand Prix itself. And because of the timings of practice 1 and on Friday, I won't be going live for that session because, just you guys won't be able to really catch my stream for that, because it'll be at a worse time for you guys, because it'll be taking place in the middle of the working day. And then, for Abu Dhabi, I won't be covering the Friday practice sessions there either, because, again, the 2 sessions are taking place during the working day. So next week, not next weekend, but the next Grand Prix weekend in 2 weeks, the sessions I will be covering will be qualifying, the sprint race, and the race. I won't be doing a watch along for practice 1 or practice 2. It'll be weekend preview on the Thursday, qualifying watch along on the Friday, sprint race preview and sprint race watch along on the Saturday, and then race preview, watch along, and reaction on the Sunday. So I'm just letting you guys know that. Next season, though, I will be bringing the Friday practice watch-alongs back at certain Grand Prix, where again the timings of the sessions are a bit better for you guys. Obviously, the majority of my audience is either Europe or North America, so if there's a practice session that starts, say any later than 5:30 p.m. UK time next season, then I will be doing a watch along for those particular sessions. So yeah, there will be some Friday practice watch alongs next season, say Saudi Arabia, obviously Miami, US Grand Prix, Mexico Grand Prix, Las Vegas Grand Prix, maybe the Qatar Grand Prix as well, Canadian Grand Prix, of course. So yeah, there'll be those next season sprinkled throughout the season. And another thing to, I guess, quickly announce is, yeah, the content plan between now and the end of the season is, so obviously I'm doing all of the content for this weekend that I've already said I'm doing, and you can find the community post on my community tab on my homepage. I don't know, 3 or 4 posts down or whatever, that goes through my entire plan for this weekend. There won't be a stream on Monday covering any big or any news because yeah, I've got quite a busy week outside of doing YouTube. So yeah, there won't be a stream or a video on Monday unless something, monumental happens during the actual race itself, which yeah, we'll see if that does happen. And then yeah, the next content on the channel will then be at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. So there'll be like a 10-day break or so of content. And then yeah, it'll be a full, load of content for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, full load of content for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and then probably a season review video or stream, either the night of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, a few hours after the race is finished, or the day after, reviewing the season, going through the teams and drivers, how they did, doing, stat comparisons and all of that. And then after that, there will be no streams during the winter break, unless something, properly massive happens, or I myself end up getting bored for whatever reason. Maybe I will decide to do a couple streams here or there if I do get bored, but if I don't, and there isn't any massive news during the winter break, which will be from November the 20th, I think, until the end of February or middle of February, there won't be any live streams on the channel, but there will be plenty of recorded videos. I've got, I think, about 9 or 10 recorded videos planned for the winter break. One of them is the, Red Bull cost cap saga and my, coming to my final conclusions. And also the Ferrari season review video, which I will be doing during the winter break. I'm also working on a video currently, which will be probably the first video of the ones coming out in the winter, which is about how Max Verstappen won the championship in 2022. And then, yeah, there's a few others as well. So I'm just letting you guys know now what the plan is between now and the start of next season. And, of course, we don't know... Well, we do know that pre-season testing is taking place a week before the first Grand Prix in Bahrain. But what do you call it? In terms of, car reveals and all of that stuff, we don't know, obviously, yet for sure when that's all taking place. So, yeah, when we get into the new year, I'll let you guys know what the plan is for, February and March and that. The reason I'm just saying this now is because, just so you guys know, going forward into the winter, what the plan is. So there is still plenty of content coming, obviously, until the end of the season. And then there will be some videos here or there during the winter break to keep you guys going. And then once we get back into February, say mid-February at the latest, then I'll probably start regularly streaming again on the channel. So yeah, just letting you guys know what's going on with that. But before I come back to you guys in the chat to see what you're all saying, I'm going to quickly post a link of the stream out again a couple of times in a couple places. Let me just quickly do that now. Come join us here to Watchalong FP2 for the Mexico City GP, and I'll just quickly post it out on Twitter, guys, and then I'll get to your comments in the chat, so don't worry, keep posting in the chat your questions or comments, and I'll get to them in a sec. And yeah, let me just do the tweet quickly. 2022 Mexico City GP practice to watch along. And we're what, 20 minutes away, I think, from the session getting underway. So yeah, not long now. And we will see whether this session is just going to be a test session or a a representative one. So let me just do a few hashtags quickly, and then I will come back to you guys in the live chat. Quickly do this. Right, 2 more hashtags, and then yeah, this tweet thankfully is done. There you go. So that's all tweeted out now, and hopefully we'll get some more people coming on in the next 20 minutes or so. But yeah, let's see what you guys are having to say in the chat, as we've got 18 minutes to go until practice 2 begins. Paul James Scribb says, I don't understand enough about the details of the cost cap to decide if Red Bull have been punished too much, not enough, or spot on. Expect the FIA have made it rather complicated in details. Sparky Pete says, finally I can disagree with you, lol. You're just plain wrong. Who can trust the FIA? Wouldn't twist every fact and wording to soften the blow for Red Bull, like Abu Dhabi should have been reasonably reversed. The thing is, yeah, Abu Dhabi should have been reversed, absolutely. Hamilton was screwed over, and yeah, he has every right, and his fans have every right to be aggrieved by that. But the reason that all happened was not because the FIA wanted Red Bull to win the championship. It's because Michael Massey, the race director, had a lot of pressure on him to get the race going again, because the Liberty Media, the people who run F1, wanted the race not to finish under a safety car, and pretty much everyone watching did not want that to happen, which is why he got the race going again. And I believe even if Max was ahead of Lewis and you reversed the situation around, and it was Max leading on the dead hard tires and Lewis was on the fresh soft tires, I believe that the race would have got going again anyway. I don't believe it was a, anti-Mercedes thing. I think it was just they did it for the show, which, I mean, yeah, it was a great ending, but it wasn't what was supposed to happen within the regulations, and it was, totally wrong in the end. But I don't believe that the FIA is, in some sort of secret pact with Red Bull that they're going to help Red Bull win or dominate the next few years. I don't believe the FIA and Red Bull are working together in that way, and I don't believe that the FIA are trying to, fix F1 in their favor. So, yeah, I don't believe that the FIA have, possibly twisted the facts to benefit Red Bull. I don't believe that's happened. I mean, maybe they have, but the thing is, and we have to realize this, we would never have evidence of it, that they've twisted the facts around to help Red Bull or to make it look a bit better than actually it has been. So even if the FIA have done that, we're never going to know if that's the case or not. And I don't think they have, by the way. So, yeah, I don't believe that's going on. And I think, the FIA in this situation, I think they've mostly done pretty well. Ewok asks, Chazza, do you see Max Verstappen becoming an 8-time world champion? It's possible, but I can't say at this current point that I see it happening. I mean, in my predicting the future of all the F1 drivers video that I uploaded, was it a couple weeks ago now? Which you guys can go check out on the channel. I think I showed it on stream last week as a break video thing this time last week. I think I said that Max would be a 5-time world champion by the end of the decade. I'm pretty sure I said that. Yeah, I think he'll win at least... He will have at least 5 championships by the end of this decade. Whether he'll, in the next decade, win another 3 to get up to 8, it's hard to say. Because obviously we don't know for sure what the future is going to look like in the 2030s. I think it's a lot easier to say for this decade rather than, for the next decade. But I will try and, give a prediction for you. I think Max Verstappen will end his F1 career with, I'm going to say 7 championships as well. I think he'll end up with 7, just like Hamilton is at the moment, and just like Michael Schumacher is. So yeah, I'm going to say 7 for Max Verstappen. I don't think he'll get to 8, because I don't think he'll be in F1 long enough to get to that point. I think if you're looking at when Max Verstappen is going to retire from Formula 1, because he is now 25 years old, he's been around already in F1 for what will be next year, 8 years. I think he'll probably retire from F1 in, about 10, maybe just over 10 years from now. I don't see Verstappen being in F1 into his 40s. I think the maximum we can see, no pun intended, we can see him going into F1 is probably until like 37, 38 years old. We have to remember with Max, as there's lots of fans crowding around the Ferrari driver of Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, sorry, who's battling to get to the garage, but is unable to do so, as there's a fan there who keeps repeatedly patting Carlos on the back and trying to grab him around the neck to get a photo, which I've got to say, if you're one of those people that does that, you're such a twat. If you want a picture with someone, don't grab them around the neck or the back of the neck and try and, swing them round, because that's just such a shitty way to do it. But, yeah, I think Max is probably going to be in F1 until, 2033, 2034, maybe 2035 at the absolute most. Because we have to remember, in 10 years' time, Max would have been in F1 for about 18 or 17, 18 years. So, that's a long time to be in Formula 1 for. And he's even talked about, he might retire by the time he's 30. Which is, if he wants to do that, if he has already a load of championships by then, it wouldn't be the worst decision in the world. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Ewok says, you deserve a break, Shazza. The trick is to find a way to take the break without it hurting the channel. Yeah, true. I mean, last winter, I didn't upload as much content as I wanted to. And that was because I was physically ill. I had a staph infection from January until or no, it was like late December until like early March. So I wasn't really physically in the condition to make videos last winter. The winter before, 2020 going into 2021, I was still mentally a bit, I wouldn't say I was recovered yet from my really bad depressive episode or depression in general. And then, obviously, the winter before that, 2019 going into 2020, that's when the depression really started to, take hold. So I haven't had a proper winter of content on this channel since the 2018 into 2019 season. So I am looking to have some content on the channel, and again, the aim is to have about 9 to 10 videos on the channel throughout the winter, probably starting from, say, the last week of November, those videos, and I'll have all 9 or 10 of them out by, say, early February, which gives me 2.5 months at most to get all those videos out. So yeah, that's the plan. And again, if I get bored during the winter, or if there's any news, then I will do a stream in the winter. And if I do decide to do one at any point, I will post in my community tab, say the day before or the morning of that planned stream. So yeah, I'll let you guys know. But obviously, we've still got a Formula 1 season to go. And 3 more races this weekend in Mexico City. 2 weeks' time, we'll be racing in Brazil. And then the final race a week after that in Abu Dhabi. The return to the scene of the crime, I guess you could call it, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. One thing I will get into, though, quickly before we get into practice 2, which gets underway in just over 8 minutes' time. Let's go through, for anyone who wasn't around for the practice 1 stream, the results of practice 1 itself. So it ended up as a Ferrari 1-2 in practice 1 with Carlos Sainz ahead of Charles Leclerc. Third was Sergio Perez, of course, the home driver. Max Verstappen was in 4th. But both Red Bull drivers set, as you can see there, the exact same lap time. But because Sergio Perez did his first, that's why Perez ended up finishing ahead of Verstappen in the session. Lewis Hamilton ended up in P5. Not too bad a pace from him, only a 10th down on Sainz, but I don't think we can say at the moment, what the pace really is like throughout the field. And then for the rest of the top 10, you've got Alonso, Bottas, Norris, Gasly, and Vettel. And then the rest of the order, Ricciardo, Zhou, Stroll, Schumacher, Latifi, and then Liam Lawson, who was replacing Yuki Tsunoda in the first session, who ended up stopping at the end of the session and causing a red flag that ended the session because his brakes, I believe, may have been on fire, his rear brakes. Then, of course, his front brakes really went on fire. And then Logan Sargent ended up in 17th. Nick De Vries ended up in 18th. Jack Doohan in 19th. And Pietro Fittipaldi, who caused the first red flag, ended up 20th. So those are the results of practice 1. And practice 2, like I said, will begin in just a few minutes' time. So, yeah. We'll get into that session in a moment. And as Ericsson says, remember to take or add vitamin D in wintertime. Best advice I've ever had. I have heard of that as a possible, thing to get you through the winter. But to be honest, actually, hold on. Just saying that Kevin Magnussen will be taking on a new ICE for FP2. Obviously, Pietro Fittipaldi, who was in his car in practice 1, had a breakdown. So a new ICE for Magnussen, meaning that it will be a 5-place grid penalty for Kevin Magnussen for the race on Sunday. That came out about 5 minutes ago. Also, apparently earlier, Christian Horner said that they're due an apology from some of their rivals, which, to To a certain extent, I think they are, but I don't think they'll be getting one. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I did mention, obviously, there's been a couple winters in the last few years that I've felt quite depressed, and that's, obviously hurt the channel because I've not been active. But that's not an issue anymore because this last year has been the happiest I've been in my entire life, actually. This year has been that good of a year, and looking at it, not much really has happened in this year, but it's still been the best year of my life because I've felt the best that I have, in my 24, almost 25 years of living. And, yeah, I feel much better than I did, for example, this time last year, where I think this time last year I had just come off a mini break I had due to a worsening of my mental health. So, yeah, I feel a lot better these days, and that is good to see. As the F1 intro is now playing, guys, so we're not far away from the session getting underway. I just want to read out one final comment in the chat, and then we'll get into this session. So, Paul Esmond says, Chazza, respectfully, I disagree with Max winning multiple 5 or 7 championships so long as Lewis is competing with a championship-winning car. Only if Lewis has a substandard car is that possible. Well, the reason I say that is because, in my opinion, I think Lewis Hamilton is a lot closer to retirement than he actually says. And I'm not saying Lewis is a liar, but I just don't, when it comes to human beings in general, I just don't believe what people say. I look at their actions. And I just think that Lewis, I think he's a lot closer to retirement than he actually says he is. I'm not saying he's not committed to F1. He definitely is, but I don't think he's, going to be in F1 for another 7 or 8 years or anything like that. As, the session will be underway in a couple minutes. Hank says, good for you, Chazza. And cheers, guys, saying that. And, that whole, depression episode that I had on and off from late 2019 until probably this time last year is over for sure. I've, moved on in life, and I'm in a much better place now than I was. And most importantly, I have a purpose. Obviously, I'm going to a university at the moment. I'm currently studying in film media and photography, which is obviously what I'm doing here. So yeah, I'm feeling good about life, and I'm sure it'll continue that way going forward. Anyway, enough of the sob story. Let's now get into the session. Current conditions, 25 degrees air temperature, 25 degrees Celsius that is. Track temperature, just under 40 degrees Celsius. So pretty hot on the track as we get into this session in just a moment. Not quite as sunny as it was earlier. A bit more cloud cover now. But the track temperature is still pretty warm at the circuit. And I will now get rid of all of this graphics and get the other graphics on the screen now. Let me just get up the running order. There you go, for all the drivers that are competing in this session. And obviously it is FP2, and it'll be, an hour and 30-minute session. The compounds, by the way, if you're wondering, C4, C3, and C2 for this weekend. But included in this session is the Pirelli test tyre, which hopefully we don't have to see for as long as we saw last weekend. But we'll see what happens with that. And I will sync up the timer at the 1 hour 29 minute mark. You guys. That's Max Verstappen. Oh no, not Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez, the home driver, is in his car, ready to get out there. Already a car going to the end of the pit lane that just went past Ted Kravitz, who's reporting obviously from the pits. And good atmosphere, got to say, at the track. Well, it always has been in general, but so far here on a Friday practice day, looking at the grandstands, they look to be full up, and it's only Friday practice, so it just shows you how much interest there is in Mexico Formula One, and of course, Sergio Perez winning 2 races this season and racing for a team who's won the championship, and Perez has been on the podium so many times this season that has helped a lot in driving up and drumming up interest in F1. And I do hope as well that because of Sergio Perez's success in F1, that will inspire, younger generations and will hopefully get more Mexican drivers in the future because, Perez has had a great career and now he's at a top team. I'm sure he's getting a lot of, attention and press in Mexico than he was when he was at Force India, even though back then he was still getting quite a bit of attention from the press in Mexico. So yeah, I hope that can lead to possibly some Mexican drivers coming into F1 in the future, as Max Verstappen does a practice start at the exit of the pit lane and now gets going. As Perez now heading into turn number 1. They haven't shown the timer on screen yet, by the way, for the session, so I can't tell you exactly how long is left in the session. Plus, I can't what do you call it, on the screen how long is left. So we've only just got about 35 seconds in. So in about 15 seconds time, I'll get the time remaining in this session on the screen for you guys as Max Verstappen continues round on this outlap. And I'll get the timer synced up on screen in 2, 1. Now, there you go. Hour and 29 minutes to go here in practice 2. As the Mexican fans now cheering because Sergio Perez has decided to join the circuit. As Perez is closely following Pierre Gasly. Yuki Tsunoda obviously still in the garage because his car's still being repaired after what happened to Liam Lawson. In practice 1. One other thing I forgot to mention, guys, is if pre-season testing next year is the same in terms of the way it's run as this year, where I think it was 3 days in total. Was it 3 days or was it 4 days in total? I can't remember. But let's say if it's 3 days in total, I will be doing a watch-along for all 8 hours of testing per day. The 4 hours in the morning and then the 4 hours in the afternoon. So yeah, that'll be coming your way. Yeah, end of February next year, about a week before the first race in Bahrain, which I've got to say already I'm looking forward to. Because obviously this year we've pretty much settled things for 2022, except for a couple positions here or there in the championship, as Perez begins his first flying lap on the 2023 prototype tyre. As he now comes down to turn 1. And I will get on screen the correct order when people start setting lap times. As Perez has not got the DRS open. Down to turn 4. And has not done a purple first sector, as I think Max Verstappen has done the first lap time of the session. And yep, he has, as Russell is second in the Mercedes. Obviously his first session of the weekend after De Vries took over his car in practice 1. As Perez does a purple middle sector now. Red Bull car looking pretty good through the middle sector. As he now comes through the final sector as Pierre Gasly now goes quickest for AlphaTauri. Sergio Perez comes to the line and goes second on a 1:22.3. Russell and Ocon have done lap times on the medium compound tyres. So not everyone on the Pirelli test tyre, but the top three, Gasly, Perez, Verstappen on the test tyre. And then Russell is fourth with Bottas in fifth. And Max Verstappen actually goes now back up to second. And then we've got Esteban Ocon in sixth place. This is a replay of Max Verstappen at turn 1. Now into turn 2 and clumping the curb there quite a lot. And I think you could probably say cutting the corner at turn 2 a bit too much. Not sure if that's going to be allowed in qualifying, but we will see. But Esteban Ocon is in now 7th place, because we've got Lewis Hamilton on the Pirelli test tyre up to 4th. And then the only other times on the board so far, you've got Ricciardo in 8th place. Zhou Guanyu is in 9th. And then Latifi is 10th, with Lando Norris in 11th for McLaren. So, yeah, Norris into P11, so only 11 times on the board so far. The two Ferraris are currently on a flying lap. So is Russell on another flying lap on the medium. Carlos Sainz now goes quickest by 1/4 of a second on the Pirelli test tyre. So up to P1 goes Sainz. Russell is 9 thousandths of a second up on Sainz after the first 2 sectors. Will he keep that speed through the final sector? As Leclerc is up to 4th for Ferrari. And here comes Russell to the line, and 6th place he goes. Lost a lot of time in the final sector, where Mercedes should be pretty weak. As Russell saying grip feels so low, which we heard Max Verstappen saying in practice 1. But Hamilton has now gone up to 6th. And then we've got Ricciardo are now up to 8th place. And Zhou Guanyu, is in 11th. Well, not anymore, because Fernando Alonso has gone 8th for Alpine on the Pirelli test tyre. And here comes Ocon, who goes up to 9th. Mick Schumacher has gone 12th. I think Kevin Magnussen is about to complete his first timed lap. No, he's actually back in the pits. I think he was on track, but he's come back in. Maybe he's doing an installation run to know if the new ICE is working properly. As there is Alex Albon in the Williams garage ready for his first session of the weekend. As Tsunoda now begins his first flying lap of the weekend on the medium compound tyres. Just trying to see if there's anyone else I need to update on my screen quickly. Yes, I need to update that Latifi has gone back ahead of Lando Norris. So 15 times on the board so far. As Tsunoda into the middle sector he comes. As we've got a few cars in the pits now, such as Gasly, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Bottas, Zhou and Norris. As we watch now Tsunoda come through the middle sector. And not a great run through turn, I think 9, where Verstappen initiated his spin earlier. But, I was going to say not too bad of a lap, and then he went deep at, I think, turn 12, that is. And, he's now to back off, and I'm sure he'll do another lap in a moment. Hopefully he doesn't hold up the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton behind, who actually comes back into the pits, I think, does Lewis Hamilton, as Tsunoda, goes or stays in 16th place, as here was Tsunoda. And just running wide, understeering, and going too deep on the brakes there. And grip pretty low around this track. Always has been, always will be. But if you get offline here, especially off the racing line, it is pretty bad. As Mick Schumacher clipping the inside curve for turn 7, I think that was, where Sebastian Vettel crashed out of the Mexican Grand Prix back in 2015. He clipped the inside curve a bit too hard and had a bit of a tank slapper. Thankfully, kept it together. Because if he had gone into the barriers big time there, Haas would have probably just decided to sack him there and then, given the amount of money they've been cost from his accidents, as Yuki Tsunoda's actually done a purple first sector. But unfortunately, I can tell you no more, because Martin Brundle is now doing a trackside analysis that he normally does for Sky F1 during practice 2. And he's at turn 10 and 11 is Brundle. The end of the S's section, if you're wondering where that is. And we did hear the news, I think, yesterday, that the Mexico City Grand Prix will be staying on the calendar until 2025. Trying to see if there's any news I can find quickly on Twitter whilst we wait for them to cut back from this. And no, can't see anything at the minute. But conditions not great at the Mexico City circuit. Look at this track though. I mean, even though you've got a very long pit straight, and then another DRS straight into turn 4, overtaking is possible here. There's no doubt about that. But it is not as easy as a lot of other tracks to overtake. So, how could we improve that, do you reckon, guys? I mean, the pit straight, I'd say really the first sector is absolutely fine. I think really it's I would say the middle sector, maybe a corner or two in the final sector that maybe you could, improve on. But, the middle, I'd say the first, I don't know, or not the first corner in sector 2, but turn 5, 6, and 7 aren't great corners at all, I've got to say. I mean, turn 5, you can, go racing in that corner with another car, but it is still pretty rare to actually go for a move there. But I think the track could be made a bit better than how it actually is. Obviously, if they had the proper final corner, like we used to have at this track back in the 80s and early 1990s, was it the Peraltada? The final corner back in the day, where obviously Nigel Mansell overtook Gerhard Berger famously back in 1990. And that was actually Ferrari's last win in Mexico. That's definitely ruined the flow of the track. But it does give the fans in the stadium section a much better look at the cars than what they had. Maybe they could replicate that Peraltada corner, but still have the stadium section there to watch them go through that corner. Maybe they could try that, I'm not sure. But I think going on to the pit straight, I think if they sped up that final sector a bit, it would make things better for the racing around this track. As Max Verstappen is about to complete another lap, as he's done a purple middle sector, and no idea where he's gone because we're not seeing it on the screen, which is annoying. But he's just continuing on a run on the Pirelli test tyre, as we are 15 minutes pretty much into this session. As it looks as though Valtteri Bottas, is it? Yeah, Valtteri Bottas is about to come out on track on the 2023 Pirelli test tyre. And now we're looking at a McLaren of Lando Norris, who is on that tyre as well. And on a bit of a flying lap as he understeers a bit at turn 13. And now completes his lap. And again, I can't tell you where he's gone because they're not showing it annoyingly on the screen. What Sky F1 are showing is a double screen with Natalie Pinkham and Danica Patrick, who are commentating for this session, talking to Jack Doohan, who did practice 1, who's in the comm box for Sky. But we are seeing a replay of Max Verstappen, presumably clumping a bit too hard again over the curb for turn 2. Yep, and clearly gaining lap time from it. Will be interesting to see if the FIA say anything in regards to that for qualifying tomorrow, because, I mean, he's clearly doing it to gain an advantage. He wouldn't be there if he wasn't. As we're now looking at Sergio Perez, who is on another flying lap. Right, so Max Verstappen is now quickest on a 1:21.5. The quickest time of practice 2 was a 1:20, or practice 1, sorry, was a 1:20.7. So we're only 0.8 of a second away. And then we've got Russell in second. Yuki Tsunoda is third. Tsunoda, though, did his best lap on the medium. Russell also did his best lap on the medium. And then, yeah, Sainz fourth, Gasly fifth, Leclerc sixth as they hide the running order again, which, again, I don't understand why they do that. For no apparent reason. As Perez so far on this lap, who is Perez currently down in P7. Up 0.2 of a second so far on this lap. Slower than his teammate Hamilton, as Ocon is 8th for Alpine, as Sergio Perez comes to the line and goes quickest by 0.009 of a second. So Red Bull 1-2 it is. And then, yeah, completing the top 10, you've got Ocon in 8th, Hamilton 9th, and then Lando Norris is in P10, with Alonso 11th, Ricciardo 12th, Sebastian Vettel is in 13th place. Just seeing a quick replay of Ricciardo at turn 2. And he using the curb at turn 3 pretty aggressively, but leaving a bit to spare at turn 2. The curb, though, did give him a bit of a shockwave as he got a bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 3. As we're looking at Alonso, is this? Yes, it is. Fernando Alonso on an outlap on the Pirelli test tyre. So Alonso is now actually in 13th, as we've had improvements throughout the field. Carlos Sainz is now up to 3rd. Valtteri Bottas is up to 6th place for Alfa Romeo. And then we've got Gasly in 7th, Leclerc 8th, Ocon 9th, Hamilton 10th, and then Norris 11th, Ricciardo is 12th, with Alonso 13th, and then Zhou 14th, Vettel 15th, Latifi 16th, Schumacher 17th, and then Stroll, Magnussen, and Albon have not done a lap time so far. As Latifi there actually has just gone up to 14th position, as Alonso now going through the S's. George Russell, I can tell you, is on the soft compound tyre now, and he's gone a second quicker than Perez in the first sector. So this will be probably the quickest lap of the weekend so far from Russell. because we've already done a 1:21.5, which is only 0.8 of a second slower than they were going at their best in practice 1. And Mercedes car, got to say, looks pretty good through the S's. Mercedes looks a bit better than I expected around this circuit. As Fernando Alonso goes 12th, and yeah, Russell now 1.4 seconds up on Perez so far on this lap. Obviously, hard to tell how quick Mercedes are compared to the others because the others are on the Pirelli test tyre. As Leclerc goes 3rd, Russell goes quickest onto a 1:19.9, which is 0.8 of a second quicker than any lap we've seen so far this weekend. So, a decent time there for Russell. As I was saying, though, in my Practice 1 stream, I expect pole position to be somewhere between a 1:16.5 and a 1:17.2. Something like that. So, he's not a million miles away from what we're going to be seeing tomorrow, but I would like to see what Red Bull and Ferrari can do. As Tsunoda all over the place in the final sector on the soft tyres. Where does he go? He goes up to 2nd, 0.8 of a second off the pace of Russell. So, not too bad of a lap in comparison. As Joe Bauer having a discussion with someone at Haas about something. As they are still working, it appears, on Kevin Magnussen's car, which is not good. But Fernando Alonso is up to 9th. And who else have we got moving up and down the order? Not quite sure. But the top 10 is currently Russell, Tsunoda, Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, who almost lost the rear end big time through turn... I think that was turn 8. Yeah, turn 8 I think that was. Where he lost the rear end quite a bit. As Esteban Ocon on the soft tyres. Just went through turn 6. He's now coming into turn 7 now. And now he comes through the end of the S's section into turn 10 and 11. And now heads down to the beginning of the final sector. And now into turn 13, where Max Verstappen infamously got a puncture from Valtteri Bottas in 2019. As Ocon round the final corner to the line and goes up to 3rd. Either the people on the Pirelli test tyre are deliberately running with a lot of fuel, or the tyres that they are on, the 2023 prototype, is very hard that they're running. Trying to look at the chat to see what you guys are saying. Ewok says Russell is doing amazing work this year. Yes, he's not been performing as well as he did in the first half of the season, but you have to remember that he has a 7-time world champion as his teammate. Yeah, he's had a good season. There's no doubt about that. We have to remember that, you know, he's going up against the GOAT for a teammate. But he will need, as he comes to the line, Russell, I think maybe to start another lap. Yeah, he is. He will need to cut out some of these silly... clumsy errors he's making when racing other cars. But he's got the speed, he's got the talent, there's no doubt about that. And we will see whether he can make some improvements and maybe be a title contender in 2023. As Lewis Hamilton has now, on the test tyre, gone up to 4th place. As George Russell is on, another flying lap. Not sure what he's doing sector time-wise. Well, he's not improved his first sector. They're now showing it as he comes through the S's. And yeah, the Mercedes car, I've got to say, in the middle sector looks very good. I mean, obviously tomorrow we'll see a lot more representative running as Russell now does a purple middle sector, but he is half a second slower for this lap than he went with his personal best, so he won't improve on this lap, I don't think. But yeah, the Mercedes looks pretty good in the middle sector. What I've seen so far, Russell comes to the line, does a purple final sector, but must have made a big mistake in the first sector that I didn't see, as he has not improved on his best lap time. For your current top 10, as we're 25 minutes in, is Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon, Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Bottas, and Gasly. As George Russell, just a slow-mo replay on the TV broadcast of him flying through the middle sector. As Max Verstappen is on an outlap. Sergio Perez was, I think, briefly, and he's come back into the pits. Pierre Gasly is now on an outlap. And we've got Alex Albon on track as well, which is good to see. As Vettel up to 12th. Is a replay of Verstappen locking the inside front into turn 4 on the test 23 tyre. And going deep and getting back on track for turn 5. Where it says turn 4, but I'm pretty sure that's turn 5. As we're now looking at Alex Albon, who is on a run on the soft compound tyres. He's only raced here once, Alex. I've got to say, though, I thought he did pretty well in that race that he did in 2019. He qualified, I think, was it in 6th place? But he put in a pretty good performance in the race. The reason he didn't end up finishing on the podium or couldn't really fight for the podium was because Red Bull put him on a 2-stop strategy when that was not the best strategy for the race that weekend and in that race. So, yeah. Had things gone better for him on the strategy there, you never know what could have happened. Alex Albon could have ended up on the podium, because I think he actually was running in 3rd place for the first stint of that race, and then, yeah, went on to the 2-stop. So, Sky F1, I can tell you've now gone to an ad break, so unfortunately, I can't tell you anything of what's going on at the moment. And, it appears that, so I'm seeing a clip online of Mercedes mechanics accidentally damaging the nose of their car earlier as they lifted it, which is a bit funny, but yeah. Let's see if I can find any info for you guys. No, can't find anything. Let me read out some comments from you guys in the chat. Nick McLean says for crashing into folk. Ewok says mistakes happen when you try to force yourself into better positions and what your car should be achieving. Mercedes is realistically 5th and 6th fastest on normal circuits. Both Hamilton and Russell have been outperforming the car all season. I salute the drivers. I don't think they've every race been outperforming the car, I've got to be honest. I don't think the car's been, I mean, for their standards, it's been a bad car. There's no doubt about that. But it's not been as bad as some people would claim. I mean, at the start of the season compared to now, it was, quite bad. But it's not been as bad as some people would think. It has been the 3rd best car this season by quite some margin at most Grand Prix. So, we have to remember that. But yeah, there's been plenty of races this season where they've had great results, and it has been due to some really great driving from Hamilton and Russell. But still a lot of work to do for those, or not for those two drivers, but for the team going into 2023. If they're going to be world champion material once again. Let me see if we can find some other comments here. Can't see anything at the minute, don't think. No. Yeah, wait to see when they come back from the ad break, and then I'll get into what's going on, and I'll be able to let you guys know what's happened with Alex Albon's lap then, and the result of what he's done, as we are now halfway into practice 2. Or not halfway into practice 2, sorry. We are half an hour into practice 2, which is what I was trying to say. So still an hour and a half, or an hour and a half a minute to go, if that makes any sense. Not an hour and a half. And here they come back from the ad break, and let's see what is going on. So Alex Albon only went 13th with that lap, which is disappointing. Thought he would have gone a bit quicker than that, but no. As Kevin Magnussen is now out on track, thankfully, on the Pirelli test tyre, and is now on his first flying lap. But yeah, your top 10 is still the same. It is Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon, Hamilton, Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Bottas, Gasly, and then the rest of the field, it is Alonso, Vettel, Albon, Norris, Ricciardo, Schumacher is actually 16th, with Latifi 17th, Zhou 18th, Stroll 19th, and Kevin Magnussen in 20th has not set a lap time, but he is about to in the next, 90 seconds or so, as he now comes into the middle sector. And Haas car moving around a bit as he now completes the middle sector pretty much. And yeah, this is a pretty slow first lap, as he's 3 seconds off the pace after the first 2 sectors. Magnussen now. Oh, lots of understeer and oversteer in that car through the final sector. And to the line, and yeah, Magnussen stays in 20th. 4 seconds off the pace of George Russell, who again is quickest on a 1:19.9. And he is 0.8 of a second quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. As they're just displaying on screen, Haas have scored more points this year than they did in the previous 3 seasons combined. 36 points for this year, 31 for 2019, 2020, and 2021 in total. So progress has been made in terms of points scored. And, if they finish 8th in the championship, it's not a disaster, because obviously last year they did finish dead last. But they haven't been able this year to unlock as much of the car in terms of its potential as much as they would have wanted to. And the reason that is because they have been unable, because they had this season no title sponsor. Oh, that is an absolutely massive crash. Red flag. And that's a Ferrari, I think. Yep, it is. Charles Leclerc's gone rear end in on the exit of turn 7. Rear wing absolutely battered. And that's going to be a new gearbox for Leclerc on the Pirelli test tyre. Ferrari will not be happy about that. You're not really supposed to be pushing that hard to end up in the barriers. That's where Sebastian Vettel ended up in 2015. And Leclerc is out. What has he done here? I'm guessing he's just come in from too wide an angle into turn 7, which I think is what Vettel did all those years ago. Let's have a replay here. Here we go. And yeah, I think the so as he turned into turn 7, he had the right-hand side of his car, the right-hand tyre. And yeah, both front and rear tyre on the right-hand side on the curb going into turn 7, which I think unsettled the car, and he ended up oversteering right through it. and then smashing his car to bits through or in the barriers. You can't blame it on the wind because the wind speed is like, what, 3 kilometers an hour, which is barely anything. And that is a disaster for Leclerc. To be honest, he's probably in qualifying trim the only man who can stop Max Verstappen at the moment. And that's not helped this weekend at all. And that's a lot of damage done to not just the car, but the barriers as well. Because a lot of the, was it polystyrene, I think, inside of the barrier has come out because of how hard he hit it. So that is not good. And we're probably going to get a delay of probably 10 minutes or so. Not a delay. The session, the timer will keep on going. But we probably won't get any running on the track for another 10 minutes at least. As the 2 Red Bulls are now wheeled back in to their garages. And yeah, that is such a disaster for Leclerc. But it's his mistake. Very simple mistake. Just turning in from too wide into the corner. Trying to maximize, I think, the entry into the corner, which is what, you have to try and do to get the most speed through the corner. He just, unsettled the car, spun the car around, and then, was a passenger from that moment onwards. D'Angelo Williams says Leclerc is a true bottle job. I don't think he necessarily is. I think it's a lot more, his team, which is the bottle jobs. But we have seen with Leclerc that he is more prone to accidents than Max Verstappen is at the moment. And Leclerc does, you feel, push too hard at times. I mean, that, practice too. And you're running the Pirelli 2023 test tire, prototype tire. You shouldn't really be pushing, hard to the point where you're running that wide. So, end of the day, it's his mistake, his fault, and he has paid the penalty. One thing I have noticed, there is quite a dark cloud coming over the circuit. I mean, it is, what time is it, local time in Mexico City? Is it like 5:30 p.m., I think? Let me have a quick look. Mexico City time. And it's 4:30, just gone 4:30 p.m., I think, in Mexico. So, yeah. D'Angelo Williams saying, just kidding, I love Charles. I like him as well. I think he's a very good driver. I think he doesn't at times get the credit he does deserve. He's immensely quick. Over a single lap, he is one of the best in F1. There's no doubt about that. And dare I say, I think he could be a better driver over a single lap than Max Verstappen even. We've seen this season how great Leclerc has been. I know the Ferrari car maybe is a bit stronger in qualifying than it is on race day, but I think Leclerc does have some great ability and quality in or over a single lap. And I think he is, in a race situation, he's got good pace. I just think he's not as reliable as Verstappen and Hamilton. I wouldn't say he's unreliable. There's other drivers on the grid that are way less reliable than him. But, the standard of driving currently in F1 is so incredibly high. You've got Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen that barely make a mistake. So if you make big mistakes in F1, they get really, noted. As Leclerc's already back in the pit lane. as the Mexican wave takes hold at the track. And yeah, great to see such a packed crowd for just practice 2. And the session should be getting underway in, what, 5 to 10 minutes from now, once they've repaired a bit of the barrier. And I hope we do get some soft tyre runs from some of the cars in this session. And once we get going again, I will say that if they just stay on the 2023 Pirelli prototype test tyre, whatever what the fuck you want to call it, if they stay on that tyre until the end of the session, then yeah, I won't bother doing a qualifying preview tomorrow, because there won't be any point in doing that, because we won't have enough data to do it, as Leclerc's being mobbed by fans trying to get pictures and signatures. And thankfully for him, gets back into the Ferrari garage. But that's him done for the session, as Sergio Perez currently talking with one of his engineers. I think maybe his main engineer, actually. As Ferrari, the Ferrari car of Leclerc just being took by the truck back to the pits. And yeah, work now going on to try and fix the barrier, which will take at least a few minutes' time. Or at least another few minutes, sorry. As Martin Brundle is right there, overseeing what's going on. And they're just throwing the polystyrene back over behind the barriers so we can get this session going again. And yeah, we should in another few minutes get going again, I would say. D'Angelo Williams, don't you think the Mercedes car this weekend looks really balanced, Chazza? Have to praise the development team. I remember them being more than 1 second behind Red Bull and Ferrari. Yeah, the Mercedes have developed well this season. They've improved the car a lot, but I think, you know, fundamentally, and I think they've even admitted at this point, because I think they came out and said, was it last weekend, that they will be going with a new car concept for 2023, which is the right decision. But yeah, they've improved a lot on what they were like at the start of the year, but I think they ended up just admitting that in the end, the car that they had was simply you know, fundamentally just wasn't good enough. And yeah, they've improved on it a lot. They've probably, I would say they're probably about a second a lap quicker now than they were at the start of the season. And I don't know, people may say, well, how come they're still not really able to fight, say, in qualifying with Red Bull and Ferrari? Well, it's because Red Bull and Ferrari, they've improved during the season as well, to a certain extent. I'd say Ferrari, you know, their car from the start of the season, it did improve up until about the 6th, 7th race of the season. But after that, Ferrari's car hasn't really improved. Red Bull, though, their car's improved quite a bit during the season. But yeah, Mercedes, they've developed well, but they've just not been able to get right up there, because again, the car fundamentally in its design just isn't the one, I guess you could say. And it's important to remember as well with Mercedes, they, this season, have had the least amount of access to wind tunnel aero testing, because they finished first in the Constructors' Championship last year. So with that, they've done very, very well to close the gap to Ferrari, for example, in the way they have. And we have to praise them for that. But, what do you call it? Finishing third this season, it does mean that if they turn up at the first race next season with a car straight away able to fight for the championship, it means that, you know, with them having, what, an extra 25-30% of wind tunnel testing than Red Bull, now that Red Bull are going to get their penalty, Mercedes will be, right back in the game if they turn up at the start of next season with a very good car. So it's looking good for next season, I would say. As Sky F1 have now gone to an ad break, and Leclerc's car almost has been fully recovered to the pits. And yeah, there's no way they'll get him back in the session because his car quite badly damaged, and I'm sure that will require a new gearbox for Leclerc. Josiah asks, do you think they'll be good enough for pole on this evidence today? I don't think there's anything we can really take from today so far. I mean, hopefully we get, in the final 45 minutes, something to look at in regards to tomorrow that, shows us what possibly could happen or what's likely to happen tomorrow. But if if we just get them going around on the Pirelli test tyre for the rest of the session, then I don't think we can really read anything into this session. And I wouldn't say we can read a ton into practice one either, because, look how many times this season practice one and its results in practice one have ended up not actually, playing out in qualifying. Practice two normally is the most representative session of a weekend because the conditions are, just right for the cars to set fast laps. It doesn't get too cold or too hot when practice two normally takes place, and we're able to see as well what the race pace is looking like. But again, so far we can't really tell. Visually, from what I've seen, Mercedes' car in the middle sector looks pretty nice, but it's really, they need to be really Mercedes. If they're going to be up there fighting for pole, they need to be really, good, I would say, in the middle and final sector. Sector one, I don't think for them really matters that much. I think it's really about the middle and final sector. And we'll see whether they do have the car tomorrow in the end. Let's see if I can find some news on Twitter quickly. And don't think I can see anything at the minute other than, Charles Leclerc has obviously put it in the barriers. And yeah, there's nothing on Twitter that I can bring you guys in terms of news at the moment. McLaren off a race. Good to see you, mate. Says snooze fest practice 2. Yeah. It's unfortunate because I was looking forward, last weekend and this weekend to doing Friday practice streams, but because of this Pirelli tyre testing bullshit, it's not as exciting as I was hoping, or as it really should be. But Friday practice sessions are not supposed to be exciting. But yeah. They've come back, by the way, from the ad break, and we still have a red flag. So the barrier clearly has not been fixed yet, as we're probably going to get the session going again, I would say, in the next 5, maybe just over 5 minutes from now. As we're looking at Kevin Magnussen in his Haas garage, and looks as though they have finished the repair work at the barrier. So maybe we are about to get underway again in a minute or two. As Leclerc's car back to the garage. And yeah, coming over a bit darker now at the track. Obviously getting later in the day, and it is late October. And yeah, what? About 10 minutes to 5 local time, PM, obviously. As Charles Leclerc's car is being took off the truck and now hopefully brought back in to the Ferrari garage. As, yep, still red flag. So there's Liam Lawson on the AlphaTauri pit wall. Looking, well, looks like he's daydreaming, to be honest. Didn't have a great session in practice one, but obviously was not his fault. It was just the unreliability of the AlphaTauri which caused that. And yeah, they're showing actually now on the Sky F1 broadcast the Mercedes mechanics accidentally damaging Nick de Vries' front wing. And I think something that the front jackman did, I think, broke the front wing there, which is a bit silly, but I'm sure they can get that fixed. And a further replay of Leclerc smashing his way into the barriers. Just wanted to say that if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I've got plenty of content heading your way tomorrow and Sunday. Obviously, tomorrow I'll be doing a practice 3 watch-along and qualifying watch-along, and then a race watch-along on Sunday, so make sure to come around for that content. And for everyone watching right now, don't forget to smash that like button, obviously to help the channel grow. As we are still waiting for the session to get going again. And, well, they did just show when the session was going to resume, and then they cut back Sky F1 to a replay of the Mercedes front wing being broken. And yeah, pretty silly thing there, but oh well. And yeah, the session back underway in just under 1 minute's time. Obviously, the timer is still ticking because it does, even when we have red flags in practice sessions. So just under 40 minutes to go in practice 2 as Carlos Sainz comes out of his Ferrari garage. Looks as though he's on the Pirelli test tyre. And yeah, so is Verstappen. And a lot of the cars behind. So yeah, not great. Because we want to be getting those drivers on the soft tyres. And seeing some actual, you know, proper runs and that. But, yeah. That's not, unfortunately, what we're going to get. One thing I will quickly do is check that we aren't going to get any more of these Pirelli test tyre sessions, before the end of the season. So Brazil, because it's a sprint race, nope, no testing there for the Pirelli tyre. And thankfully not in Abu Dhabi either, which is good to see. But still, annoyingly, we have it here. So you'll come out to track now with 37.5 minutes to go until the end of practice 2 and Friday practice here on this Friday, which will be known for the day we found out what Red Bull's punishment was, rather than what's going on the track, unfortunately. But that is Formula 1 at the end of the day. Very political sport, always will be, unfortunately, and has been for decades. As we're looking at Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull, coming to the end of this outlap on the Pirelli test tyre, as so does everyone else. I'm going to be honest, guys, this is going to be a very boring final 36 minutes. If they just do running on this tyre that we don't know, what the type of compound is. Is it a hard compound? Is it a soft compound? It's hard to, look at this and actually, get a good understanding of who's quick, who's not. So in the chat, just post some comments and questions that you want me to read out. Because, yeah, this is going to be a tough watch. The next 36 minutes if we don't get anything interesting happen from now on, which I fear may be the case. As we're looking at Max Verstappen on board. Going through the S's. And I've got to say the Red Bull car looks comfortable, I would say, through the S's. But nothing amazing so far. But all around, the Red Bull car does look pretty comfortable to drive. Which it has done all season. As Verstappen is, I think on the first of many long, or not long laps, slower laps. Here as he does a 1:23.6 that time as Kevin Magnussen goes up to 17th. 4.5 tenths of a second slower than his teammate, Mick Schumacher. As we now look at Lando Norris, who's heading up to turn 4 now. One thing I was actually talking about, though, which I will finish what I was saying, and I was talking about this right before Charles Leclerc's accident, about Haas F1. In how, this year, they've had a good car this year, but they've not been able to fully realise the potential of the car because they just haven't had the money to develop the car properly. And they haven't been able, because they've not had a title sponsor this year, they haven't operated at the budget cap level, which their new title sponsor, MoneyGram, that they'll have for next year, will allow them to operate, at the very limit of the cap as Lance Stroll goes up to 17th. So if Haas can keep doing what they've done well with this car, and they start the season off like they did this season, where they were arguably the quickest team out of the midfield pack at times, then next season should be a better year where they'll be able to develop their car a lot more than what we've seen this year. Because if you look at this year, they haven't really brought any developments this year. They brought, I think, a couple to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, which was the 4th race of the season at the end of April. And then they didn't bring any upgrades until the final race before the summer break, the Hungarian Grand Prix at the very end of July. 3 months later. And that upgrade, I think, probably in reality has made their car quicker, just not noticeably quicker compared to the rest of the field. And I think the reason why it hasn't made their car noticeably quicker is because other teams have developed so much since their first real upgrade in Imola. So yeah, really, this season they've only had 2 upgrades, 2 big main upgrades this season of Haas F1. So, yeah, next season, if they can start, like I said, the season off well, like they did this year, then I think next year they've got a decent chance of putting a fight up against, some higher placed teams in the championship currently. Next season, and plus, if they finish 8th or 9th in the championship, they will have a lot more wind tunnel testing time than teams like McLaren and Alpine, which will help them a lot. As replay of Max Verstappen going deep at turn 1. And again, rear end coming around almost. And I've got to say, the rear end on Max Verstappen's car, and it happened as well for Sergio Perez there, on the exit of turn 1. The rear end of the Red Bull so far today has not looked very good. Been a few snaps of oversteer on Verstappen's rear end. Of his car, I mean. G Walker says sprint racing was brought just to give F1 fans more race time on track, kind of F1 marketing, I guess. It was brought in to make things more exciting, I guess, and to try and throw things up and, you know, hope that it made some sort of a difference. But yeah, in the sprint races we've had so far in F1, I don't think they've made much of a difference to the race we had, you know, on the Sunday, which is unfortunate. But I don't think the sprint race idea actually works fundamentally. But unfortunately, next year, not only are we getting 3 sprint races, we're getting 3 more than this year. So next year, there will be 6 sprint races. No idea where they'll be taking place. Let's hope not the first race of the season, because that would be quite annoying. But yeah, 6 sprint races out of the 24 Grand Prix in 2022. Or 2023, sorry. Another bit of news to bring you guys, which a pretty good journalist in F1, Spanish journalist called Albert Fabrega, who I think you guys have heard me mention before. What do you call it? He reported a story, I think, was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it might have been yesterday, maybe early this morning, that it's not looking good for South Africa to get onto the calendar for 2024. And he then mentioned that Colombia is putting things in place to have an F1 race in 2024 or 2025. I'm guessing, because I've never heard of motorsport racing in Colombia, I will be honest. I'm assuming they're going to have a street circuit in the capital, which is Bogota, is it? Or Bogota? Not sure how you pronounce it. Yeah, I saw that earlier, which was surprising. Let me just find it quickly. Because normally he's a pretty reliable journalist, is Albert. And yeah, so he said 18 hours ago, rumours saying that the 2024 South African Grand Prix option is very difficult to happen and that Colombia is doing the right steps to be a candidate. Nobody has mentioned Colombia until now, so yeah. Let me just have a look to see if there's any Colombian racing tracks. Because I've never heard of one, I'm pretty sure. There's one called the Autodromo de Tocancipá, is it? There's another one. Well, that's a horse racing track, not a proper motorsport track. Yeah, looking at that track I just mentioned, yeah, it looks pretty simple, to be honest. It looks like a decent circuit, but yeah, I would be surprised if we had a Colombian Grand Prix in 2 years. I'm sure the drivers on the grid that are single would not mind going to Colombia for an F1 race, but yeah, I've not heard any other stories about that, so I guess we'll see. As they continue on their long, never-ending runs on the Pirelli test tyre, and I will let you guys know if they decide to go on to the soft tyre at any point, but I fear that they will not. Let's see if I can find some comments from you guys in the chat to read out. Rookspurt says it's fair to say that under wind tunnel rules, Williams, Haas, etc. will have lots of members of staff just working in the wind tunnel just to use up the time they've got. Yeah, Um, any extra time you're allowed, you've got to use it to try and, find something if you can and try out different, ways of running your car, I guess. I will admit I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to aero testing in the wind tunnel and CFD work. But, yeah. If you look at Williams, for example, I think Williams, if we were to look at, what teams have made quite big improvements from where they were at the start of the season, obviously Red Bull have made a big improvement because they were definitely slower than Ferrari at the start of the season. Mercedes have improved a lot. Alpine have improved a bit, but I don't think they've improved as much as people think they have. McLaren improved a bit as well. But again, not as much as people, I think, expect. But I don't think McLaren, from the start of the season, improved as much as people are saying they did. I think the start of the season, the reason McLaren was so slow was because in testing, they had those brake issues, which meant they couldn't do as much testing as they wanted to. And then, they were behind everyone else in the first two races. But then race 3, they were like the third or fourth best team. So, they've improved McLaren a bit this season, but I wouldn't say as much as other teams. Alfa Romeo, they've just not improved at all this season. They were very good at the start of the season, but because they don't have a big development budget really at all, I think they've only got a development budget of like $2.5 or $3 million US, which is not that much in in F1 terms. They've not improved at all, really. Aston Martin, I'd say that they've been the most improved team during the season, and because again they finished 7th in the championship last season, and they have more wind tunnel time than Alpine and McLaren, and obviously the front teams as well. That's why they've closed the gap so much to the very front of the field, and why they've got to the position they're now in, where they are pretty competitive with McLaren and Alpine for finishing in the points at every Grand Prix. As Sky F1 now go to an ad break, just to update you guys. And then, for the bottom 3 teams, Haas, AlphaTauri, Williams. Haas, again, start the season well, but again, because they didn't have the money from a title sponsorship to spend on keeping their car quick. Because you got to remember, coming into this season, or for this season in general, Haas have had the most wind tunnel time out of any team. So, in reality, they should have been able to develop their car pretty well this season, but because, again, they've not been able to operate at the level of the cap, because they lost the Russian sponsorship, their title sponsorship, at the start of the season for totally fair reasons, unfortunately, for Haas, they've not been able to develop their car as well, so they've been, I think, quite unlucky this year. AlphaTauri have not really improved that much this season. I mean, they have improved, I guess, a tad from what they would like in the first half of the season, but their car's just been pretty mediocre the whole season. And then for Williams, their car's improved quite a bit from what it was like in the first half of the year, but again, it's not really any different in its position relative to the rest of the field than it was in the first half of the season. When tyre testing is so bad, we talk about cricket. Yeah, cricket I find so boring. The only way I could watch cricket is if I was hammered or, stoned out of my mind. But there's no way I could watch cricket. I think it's so boring. If they were to make cricket like a 2-3 hour thing where, it's a lot more sped up than a lot of cricket events you get, I'd find it a lot more interesting. Maybe those are out there, but cricket for me is just so long and drawn out and boring. Let's see if there's any news on Twitter I can bring you guys. And no, I can't see anything, really. I'll keep scrolling, though, to see if there's anything I can bring you guys in terms of news. Yeah, can't see anything. Yeah, no real news updates, unfortunately, as we enter the final 20 minutes of practice 2. By the way, cheers McLaren for race for saying, fucking hell, Chaz, well done for making this interesting, mate. No problem. It is hard when we, have what's going on here. But, yeah. We will suffer through until the end. So they now come back from the ad break. And yeah, if they keep on, like I said, if they keep on doing this tyre testing until the end of the session, then plans will be different for tomorrow. Because if they don't go on the soft tyres soon, and what I am going to do instead for tomorrow is not do my qualifying preview, and I will instead go live to start with for my practice 3 watch along, which would be at 5:45 p.m. and then do the watch along, then do the build up to qualifying for a couple hours, and then qualifying begins at 9 p.m. UK time, and obviously until 10 p.m. and then I'll do a reaction to that. And then for Sunday, guys, yeah, I'm live definitely at 6 p.m. UK time. And then the race starts at 8 p.m. UK time, and obviously we're doing a watch along for that for a couple hours, and then for an hour or so after, I'll be reacting with you guys to the race. One thing to remember, though, and I put this on my community message that I posted a couple days ago. Please remember on Sunday, very early on Sunday morning at 2 a.m. UK time, that the clocks in the UK go back an hour. Please remember that as we switch over from BST to GMT. But to be honest, if you're in the UK at the minute, you wouldn't actually think that we are, 3 or 4 days from November, because it's been actually pretty warm in the UK at the minute. I mean, today in my part of the UK, it was quite sunny, and it was like 17 degrees, which, yeah, for my part of the UK any part of the UK in late October is unheard of. And pretty sure, yeah, tomorrow, for example, in London, it's 22 degrees. Like, where is this coming from? Well, we know where it's coming from. It's climate change, and global warming and that. But yeah, it is, us switching over to GMT on Sunday morning. And I'm not going to read that out, McLaren F1 race, but yeah, cheers for that. As Sergio Perez is on another lap, wouldn't call it a flying lap, but it is a lap on the Pirelli test tyre. And the biggest thing I think the drivers are wanting from these 2023 tyres is more front grip, because I think that's been the biggest complaint from the drivers, is that the tyres, because obviously they are new tyres, the 2022 tyres, compared to what we had back in 2021, obviously bigger tyres, yeah, they don't have enough bite, I guess you could say, on the front end, on the front tyres. So the front tyres don't bite into the track as much as, say, maybe last year's tyres did. So, yeah, hopefully the grip for the drivers can improve as Sergio Perez completes another lap and continues on, and his teammate Max Verstappen is also continuing on as well. The only cars in the pits are the two Mercedes, Tsunoda, Ocon, obviously Leclerc because he had a crash, Vettel, Albon, Schumacher, and Latifi as Alonso continues on. His current pace, Alonso's a 1:25.5, which is very slow. Because again, I think the quickest race times we're going to see on Sunday is probably going to be about 2 or 3 seconds quicker than that. Ewok says Chazza should start merchandise. Maybe in the future I would, decide to do that. But yeah, that's definitely something that is not coming in the, very immediate future. In terms of a possible Patreon account, which you guys could donate to in the future, or even, merchandise. I'd still say I'm quite a bit away from actually doing that. I'm a lot closer to setting up a Patreon than I am having merchandise. I think really, to get merchandise, I need to have at least a certain amount of subscribers, because I don't want to, make merchandise that nobody's going to buy, or not that many people rather are going to buy. But yeah, I mean, my channel's on 12,100 subs at the minute. If my channel gets up to, say, I don't know, another 10k, maybe 12k, around 25,000 subs, or just under 25,000 subs, then I will probably set up a Patreon, because, there'll be enough people, I reckon, at that point, dedicated people, that I reckon could, be willing to donate. But yeah, I mean, I may do that. I may also do a membership thing with the channel, because you can do that with YouTube channels now. You can have people who spend, $1 or $2 or whatever and become members of the channel. I might do that. So yeah, but I will say again, because of the amount of subs I have at the minute, I don't think I'm gonna be doing that at the moment. But in the future, if my channel, starts to properly grow, and we get to around 25 or just under 25,000 subs, then yeah, probably we'll start setting up some sort of Patreon or donation account, or whatever you call it, so you guys can show support for the channel and possibly, help with future costs for the channel as well. As Russell in the Mercedes is on the test tyre, and he's just going around into the middle sector. But let's please try and calm down, by the way, in the chat with the certain comments from McLaren for race. Let's not go too overboard, please. Let's try and keep it, let's try and keep it civil. As Russell has completed another lap and heads down to turn 1 now. And yeah, the conditions have become a lot cooler. It's pretty much clouded over at the circuit in, well, not all places, but most places. Rook says, lol, not you, Chaz, of the depravity that occurs in chat after 90 minutes of testing. Brother Mod says, I think the YouTube algorithm has a thing against you for some reason. I mean, maybe it's, past copyright things, but I wouldn't say the algorithm has anything against me. I think one thing that hasn't helped with my channel, because, if you go and look at 2019, where I went from, I think, 1,500 subs up to 9,500, so that's a gain of 8,000 subs, which if I had that in a single year now, I would really, love if that happened. Back in that year, I was uploading content so consistently. I was uploading so many videos, And I think the majority of the videos on this channel came through in that year. Because I was doing so many streams, so many videos from, you know, the very start of the year all the way until pretty much Christmas. So, yeah, that helped. But then, you know, 2020, I did a few videos in the winter. Then my channel got deleted, and then I got it back. Then the videos eventually, after a few months, came back. Then I briefly came back for a few streams at the end of the 2020 season. Then I went away again for the whole of the winter break. And then suddenly, I came back for 2021 for testing. And then, what do you call it? For 2021, I only did content regarding the race weekends. I didn't do any in-between race content. And then this year, I've started to increase it again to what I was doing, in 2019. But we have to remember as well, I did miss the first 3 races, which definitely cost me a lot. Because, you know, the boom you get at the start of a season when F1's, you know, super excited for F1 is quite a lot. And also, you know, when I came back at Imola, I did that race, did the Miami race, and then I had to take the Spanish Grand Prix off because I had to have my eye operation. So, yeah, the start of the year was a bit messy, unfortunately. But if I had, you know, if I had in 2020, if I had done content as normal that year, and even during the first lockdown, I had done loads of content and then done a watch-along for all of the qualifying and races in 2020, my channel probably would have gained a few more thousand subs that year, and then, you know, I probably would have carried that momentum into 2021, and then, you know, into this year as well. And then currently, and as well, if the internet issues at the start of this year had not happened, then at the start, at this point now, we're at the, you know, towards the end of 2022, instead of being on 12,100 subs, I'd probably be on, what, 20,000, I'd say, at least. Maybe you could say at most 20,000, but I reckon I would be on about 20,000 subs if, you know, if I had done consistent content like I did in 2019 for 2020, 2021, and say the first 3 or 4 months of this year. But as long as there are no internet issues or technical problems next year that hamper me seriously, then next year I will be covering testing in its entirety by doing, you know, a watch along for every hour of testing, every minute of testing, whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, every race next year I'll be covering on the channel, except maybe for the Spanish Grand Prix, which I might be going to in person. But if I do go to in person, I will do, you know, recordings and pictures. I take pictures of the cars from the track, and I will, you know, post that at the end of each day that I'm there, you know, the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday, if I do go. It's still not confirmed that I'm going to be going. I'd say at the moment it's probably a 50-50 as to whether I'm going or not. It does depend a lot on, obviously, the cost. And then, you know, the logistics and everything. So, yeah, we will see. But, yeah, you know, I've had a lot better of a year in terms of consistent content this year than I had, you know, last year or the year before. And next year, if I, you know, keep increasing it back to the levels it was at, and I improve the content again, which I'm looking to do next year, then I think we'll be, I think next year will be a good year. I hope. Ewok says, the key to YouTubing seems to be just trying to enjoy the content that you produce. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't enjoy, or I didn't enjoy the content I used to produce. I just think, looking back, it could have been a lot better. And if I, you know, had known and had the skills now that I had, or that I have now, if I had them back then, I could have made definitely better videos. But yeah, I don't want to do maybe things that maybe I did do in the past, which is make a video for the sake of making a video just to fill up a gap of where there's nothing going on in the F1 world. But yeah, like I said, I've got some videos planned for the winter break, and all of them, I want to make. It's not that I'm just making them to fill up time or give you guys something to watch. They're videos that I'm, very interested in making. I think videos that you guys will enjoy, and they're not just going to be simple videos. They're going to be, more in-depth videos that you guys will, I'm sure have your own opinions on. But, yeah. If I can try and upload, say, if I've got, 10, Carlos Sainz, like a rally driver through the final sector, oversteering like mad, and so was Pierre Gasly, where he turned 16 there, or into turn, or I think it was turn 15 actually, for Gasly. But as Max Verstappen steps out of his car, thankfully only 5 minutes to go in this absolute bullshit session. What was I going to say? Yeah, if it turns out that, I've got 10 videos to do that I want to do in or for the winter break, then my hope is that I can get, say, one video out every 2 weeks, or maybe one every 10 days, something like that. So some weeks there might be one video a week, and then there might be an extra week's break in between certain other videos. But yeah, I've got a few videos planned, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy some of them. But like I said earlier, we've still got a season to complete this weekend. 2 weeks time in Brazil, and then a week after that in Abu Dhabi, and then the season is finished. And the next season we start 2 weeks earlier in Paul James Squibbs. Then you have to mention celebrity YouTubers and sensationalize your titles a bit. I mean, I could do that, and I'm sure it would increase the viewership, but yeah, that would just be absolute shithouse content, really. But yeah, next season we've got more races, which obviously is more of a chance to gain subscribers or followers for the channel. But the season starts 2 weeks earlier, and so does pre-season testing start 2 weeks earlier than it did this year. And it ends the season a week later than this year. So, that'll help for next year. But, yeah, we'll see how next year goes. If I can get up to 15,000 subscribers next year, I think I'd be pretty satisfied with that. Maybe you may be watching and thinking that I am underestimating how much, subscribers I could gain next year. You are, it's fair enough thinking that, but I don't want to be too unrealistic, let's say, with, how much subscribers I think I can gain for next year. I mean, this year I've gone from 10,500 to now just over 12,000, and by the end of the year it looks as though we are going to end the year probably on 12.5k, which is not too bad. So yeah, I think next year 15k would be a realistic goal. As we've got a yellow flag in sector 3 with 2 minutes 20 to go. Who has put it in the wall, if anyone? We're currently looking at Yuki Tsunoda, so I can't tell you who. And yeah, no idea. As there you go, it's an Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas, is it? Nope, Zhou Guanyu, red flag, and that thankfully is the session done. What an absolute shit session that was. So I will quickly read out the final finishing order of practice 2. George Russell has ended up quickest, from Yuki Tsunoda second, Ocon third, Hamilton fourth, and then the rest of the order: Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Bottas, Gasly, Alonso, Vettel, Albon, Norris, Ricciardo, Schumacher, Stroll, Magnussen, Latifi, and Zhou Guanyu. So that's your final finishing order for practice 2. Obviously, this session doesn't mean anything because of the tyre testing. And I can announce that, unfortunately, because we've not had enough relevant running and data today from the practice sessions, as it looks as though Zhou there just grinded to a halt. Obviously, Alfa Romeo have been very unreliable this year, so has the Ferrari power unit. There will not be a qualifying preview tomorrow, because again, there's just not enough relevant data to really do a good qualifying preview for you guys. So instead, this is what I am going to do. I will be going live at 5:45 p.m. UK time tomorrow for the Practice 3 watch-along, lasting until 7 p.m. And then from 7 till 9 p.m, I'll be doing a build-up to qualifying. 9 p.m. UK time until 10 p.m, I'll be doing the qualifying watch-along. And then for at least half an hour after the session finishes, I'll be reacting with you guys to qualifying. So make sure to join me for that tomorrow. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this and come around for that content tomorrow. And for everyone still watching, don't forget to smash the like button for this stream, because obviously it does help the channel grow. And also don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 and join my Discord server, link below in the description, guys. And yeah, cheers for all of you coming around for the Practice 1 and Practice 2 streams today. And until my Practice 3 and qualifying watch-along coming up tomorrow. And again, I'm going live tomorrow at 5:45 p.m. UK time. Until then, guys, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.